On this continent, gemstones are more than just pretty jewelry. Very rarely, you'll find stones that hold a piece of lost ancient magic inside them. People call these rare finds magic stones. While the nobles enjoy their luxury, there's a much darker world right beneath their feet. Down in the pits, slaves spend every single day forced to polish rough rocks into gems. A bell rings, signaling the end of another brutal shift. Kid looks at a stone, thinking they're finally done for the day. But one of the overseers isn't happy. He grabs another slave and starts shouting about how terrible the work is. He calls the stones garbage, claiming they won't make a single cent like this. He sneers at everyone, saying they're all completely useless. He looks at the purple jewel in the boy's hand and tells everyone that this is what a pretty stone actually looks like. Without a single word, he reaches out and snatches the stone, but the slave boy refuses to let go. He looks the man in the eye and tells him it's not finished yet. The overseer doesn't take that well and kicks him straight into the dirt. Kid hits the ground hard while the guy looms over him, annoyed he's still dealing with this. The blow is so brutal that the boy coughs up blood onto the floor, yet the overseer's face is still twisted with pure hatred. It's clear the kid has managed to get right under his skin. He leans in, hiding the defiant look he sees in the boy's eyes. He mocks Kid, asking if he thinks he's special just because he's good at polishing stones. Another heavy kick sends the boy sliding across the floor. The overseer decides it's time to teach the brat a lesson. He tells Kid if he loves polishing so much, he can do everyone else's work for the night. Clenching his fist, the guard sets the stakes. He gets to hit the kid as much as he wants, and in exchange, the boy earns more work for every punch. What kind of insane logic is that? He gets a punch to the face as the answer. The guards keep hitting him over and over. They eventually walk away, calling him a stupid brat and telling the others to get to bed. Kid is left alone in the dark. He picks himself up, counting the hits, exactly 3. He grabs the overseer's shoulder, telling him he needs 3 more before the guy leaves. A strange, intense light glows in Kid's eyes. The overseer is creeped out and shoves him away, shouting for him to stay back. Kid doesn't stop, he begs for more hits. The man looks terrified, asking if the kid has lost his mind. They keep beating him until they can't take any more of his obsession. The guards bolt out of there, yelling for him to stay away. Klaus watches them go from the shadows. Kid's legs are shaking as he drags himself back to work. He sits down in the quiet workshop, exhausted. Light starts filtering through the bars as the morning sun rises. He realizes he's been working right through the night. He thinks to himself that he might have gotten a little too carried away with those guys. He closes his eyes, picturing the stones, red, yellow, and blue. He remembers finding a light blue one for the first time. It felt different, like it was packed with way more power than any other stone. Kid, S letter 1ED1H, I letter 1EC7U1, sits in his cell, wishing he could see even more types of stones. It frustrates him that they won't just let him polish as many as he wants under normal conditions. A guard kicks the bars, shouting that it's time for everyone to get out and get to work. Klaus reaches out a hand, asking the boy if he's even able to stand after the beating he took. Kid looks up, still a bit shaky, but manages to tell the old man he's fine. The old man has been keeping a close eye on the boy for a long time, wondering what on earth has possessed him to start acting like this all of a sudden. As the slaves head up the stairs to the workshop, Kid notes that no one has bothered to talk to him since he arrived. He and Klaus take their usual spots at the long work table. Kid asks the old man if he actually needs something, since they've never spoken before. An overseer bangs on the table, warning the slaves they better do a good job polishing today. He gets right in Kid's face, threatening to beat him if he catches him dozing off at the table. Kid doesn't seem bothered at all, already focused on the rough stones in front of him. He picks up a new piece, wondering if the color is purple or maybe a deep red. He smiles to himself, eager to see how it'll look once it's actually finished. Klaus watches him work, asking why on earth he'd go so far just to polish a few rocks. The old man tries to get him to talk, asking what he was really thinking yesterday. Kid just tells him he's trying to focus on his work and doesn't want to talk. He explains that it's simple. He just wanted to polish stones, and that's the end of it. He holds up the gem, telling Klaus he never saw anything this beautiful back in the alleys where he grew up. He remembers his life as a desperate orphan, struggling just to survive each day in the cold rain. Back then, he felt like a walking corpse with nothing to satisfy his soul. But here, despite being a slave, he gets the chance to touch and polish these mysterious gems. Klaus is stunned, finally realizing the boy willingly took a beating just for that opportunity. He asks if that's truly why he sacrificed his sleep and his health. Kid tells him to leave him alone, saying his own interests are nobody else's business. He stares at the stone again, truly captivated by its internal beauty. Klaus looks at the dull pebble in his own hand, confused by how the boy could see anything special in it. To Kid, a complex pattern surfaces within the stone the more he polishes it. He says that watching it shimmer is the only thing that actually puts his mind at ease. Klaus is shocked, asking if the boy can really see what's inside the stone. The old man strokes his beard, trying to process what the boy just told him. He starts to realize that Kid might actually have a very rare and powerful gift. He tells the boy that what he's seeing inside the gem is ancient magic. Kid is confused, holding up the dark rock while the old man explains. Klaus tells him these special jewels are called magic stones, and they're packed with incredible power. He explains that if you pair one with a book called a grimoire, you can use the magic hidden inside. Kid is fascinated, asking if there are even more beautiful stones like this somewhere else. Klaus confirms it, noticing the genuine spark of interest in the boy's eyes. He tells him about stones all over the world that hold the power of wind, fire, and water. He explains there are countless stones out there, far more than the ones they see in this pit. Kid listens intently as Klaus describes the vast variety of magic stones found across the globe. He looks at his small purple stone, wondering just how much more is out there in the world. Kid, S letter 1ED1 H, I letter 1EC7 U1, leans toward the old man, his curiosity burning as he asks where he can find more of these incredible stones. Klaus tells him that if he really wants to see the world beyond this pit, his first step is to find a way to get outside. A sudden, violent shockwave interrupts their quiet conversation, shattering the peace of the workshop. Klaus is thrown backward by a burst of magic, the small purple stone slipping from his fingers as Kid looks on in horror. Kid rushes to the old man's side, crying out for him as a cold, mocking voice asks who was talking about escaping. Malik Lanberic, a cruel man with long white hair and a sharp mustache, towers over them with a shimmering grimoire. He clutches the ornate, crystal-covered book, looking down at the two slaves with absolute contempt and malice. Kid looks up at the man, his purple eyes wide with shock and a growing sense of danger as he realizes their secret has been discovered. Malik shows up in the middle of the dungeon, looking down at the slaves like they're dirt. He asks where they think they're going. Klaus looks up, his eyes sharp even in this dump. Beside him, the kid stares back, looking completely drained. Malik just smirks, mocking the old man for even thinking about escape. The boy tries to help Klaus, who's clearly seen better days. The old man glares at Malik, calling him out for showing his face here. Malik doesn't seem bothered. He just wears that smug, punchable grin. The kid asks if he knows this guy. Klaus confirms it with a heavy heart. He calls Malik a traitor who threw away the honor of being a mage. Malik acts like his feelings are hurt, feigning shock at the accusation. He reminds Klaus they worked side by side for 30 years. Klaus just grits his teeth. Klaus's fist trembles. He knows everything Malik is saying is true. Back in the day, they were the elite. Malik was Klaus's right-hand man, always relying on his brilliance. They were a legendary duo, making magic look easy. But 2 weeks ago, Malik turned. He took Klaus's granddaughter hostage to force his hand. He used the girl to steal Klaus's grimoire, and then framed the old man for selling magic stones on the black market. Klaus spits back that he'll never forgive him. Malik just laughs, calling him a hypocrite. Malik stands there holding the stolen grimoire, flanked by his guards. He mocks Klaus for being so soft-hearted that it led to his ruin. Klaus can't even stand. He's reduced to a slave in his own city. Malik drones on about how Klaus is still clinging to his past glory, back when he was a genius who could wield 10 types of magic at once. But he's dead wrong. The world has moved on and his time is up. Klaus used to be known as the orchestrator of miracles, a master of the craft. All that power came through this one legendary book. Now Malik says Klaus is nothing more than a frail old man without it. Klaus tells him to keep his filthy hands off his book. Malik finds it hilarious that Klaus still calls it his. Malik admits he tried to use the grimoire and the jewels himself, hoping for a power boost. But he couldn't get the magic to work at all. It's useless to him. In a fit of rage, Malik tosses the priceless relics away like they're garbage. The kid stops dead. He sees the book and the stones starting to glow. The jewels roll across the floor, shimmering with a light only the boy seems to notice. His eyes widen. He can feel his heart racing just by looking at them. He clutches his chest. Something about those stones is calling to him. In his mind, everything else fades away. It's just him and the glowing jewels. He snaps back to reality, breathing hard and looking completely rattled. Malik looks down at the slaves, wondering why the brat is acting so weird. The boy's eye is shining with a strange blue light. Klaus notices it too. Malik demands to know why the kid is reacting to the magic stones. Klaus stays silent. The guards move in, ready to snatch the boy up and get some answers. Klaus tries to get in the way, reaching out to protect the kid. But one of the goons just kicks the old man aside without a second thought. The boy screams out as the guard grabs him, helpless to stop them. Malik is set on interrogating the slave boy, but Klaus cuts him off, calling him nothing more than a blind fool. He mocks Malik, telling him that a man like him will never, ever be able to see the true wonder of magic. Stung by the insult, Malik's eyes narrow in a fit of rage, his fury erupting like an uncontrollable wildfire. Klaus doesn't stop there. He doubles down, mocking Malik that it's actually his own eyes that have been clouded by nothing but pure greed. Stunned into silence by the verbal beatdown and unable to find a single comeback, Malik resorts to brute force. Malik snaps, grabbing Klaus by the hair and pulling his head back. He asks if the old man even realizes how pathetic he looks right now. He leans in close, calling Klaus nothing more than fragile trash. Malik vows to use him as a test subject, exploiting him until the day he dies. He looks down at the items on the floor, obsessed with the power Klaus used to hold. Malik stares at the pair of them, swearing that he'll make all that power his. He turns to walk away, saying he'll do whatever it takes to reach the top. He reaches out and snatches a lit candle right off the wall. With one final, cruel word, Malik tosses the flame, letting the fire consume everything that remained of Klaus's legacy. The kid watches in horror as the flames begin to roar around them. Malik is just a silhouette through the heat, looking completely unbothered. Klaus screams at him, asking what the hell he thinks he's doing. Malik scoffs, declaring that both the stones and Klaus's book are nothing more than useless junk if they can't grant him the power he craves. He stands surrounded by the fire, holding the grimoire and the stones. He says the book has outlived its usefulness. He looks Klaus right in the eye and tells him he'll never even dream of escaping again. Klaus yells for him to stop, but the guards keep him pinned down. Without a second thought, Malik chucks the legendary grimoire and the stones right into the middle of the inferno. The kid watches them fall, his eyes following the light as it's swallowed by the fire. One of the stones shines brightly right in front of him. Before anyone can react, the kid bolts straight into the flames. Klaus can only watch in shock. Malik is caught completely off guard, yelling out in surprise. The kid reaches into the searing heat, his hands dangerously close to the blaze. He grunts in pain as the fire licks at his skin, but he doesn't pull back. His focus is entirely on the glowing stones at the heart of the fire. He pushes further into the center of the dungeon, where the items landed. Klaus yells at him to forget the stones and just grab the book. As the kid reaches out, a blinding light starts to erupt from the flames. Malik tries to strike him down, screaming for the brat to stop meddling. He swings a flaming branch at the boy's head. But the kid doesn't even look at him. His eyes are locked on the prize. The boy tells them all to stay the hell out of his way. He's kneeling right in the middle of the inferno, the heat making the air shimmer. He finally gets close enough to reach for the grimoire. He grits his teeth, pushing through the absolute agony of the burns. His hand finally snaps shut around the book. He's got it. The moment his hand brushes against the book, a miracle unfolds. The grimoire erupts in a blinding light, and a surge of magical energy begins to pour into his very soul. His eyes are wide, glowing with a power that's definitely not human. A massive pillar of light and fire suddenly explodes outward from him. The boy begins to hover right at the epicenter of the magical blast, his arms still clutched tightly around the grimoire. Klaus watches the boy in total shock, his mind racing as he wonders if he's witnessing something he thought was impossible. Surrounded by the intense glow of the magic, the kid can only look on in confusion as the strange power surges all around him. Kid feels a strange heat rising from deep within his body. Everything he sees begins to sparkle with an intense light. His eye changes, manifesting a complex jewel-like pattern in the pupil. A newfound sense of power washes over him, making him feel like he can do anything. Malik Landberg stares in pure shock, unable to believe what's happening. He realizes the impossible. A mere slave has awakened as a grimoire smith. Recovering from the surprise, Malik screams for his men to bring that to him. A terrified guard shouts back in acknowledgement and rushes off. Malik prepares to use the grimoire he's holding, needing its power immediately. Kid holds onto the old man's book as the flames around him grow more intense. Malik opens his own grimoire, desperate to keep the other book away from the kid. He starts casting a spell, furious that a common slave is defying him. Kid looks back at the mage, still protecting the grimoire in his arms. Malik unleashes a massive water attack called Aqua Divald. The heavy torrent of water spirals down directly toward the boy. Kid stands his ground, staring into the heart of the incoming wave. Fire and water collide in a violent burst of steam and light. Malik is stunned to see the boy still standing after such a direct hit. The force of the magic sends Kid skidding backward. He looks at the surrounding fire and realizes he can actually control it. He stood up, raised the book high, and surrounded himself with flames as a protective shield. Malik struggles to keep up, shocked that the boy is already manipulating magic. Concentrating all the surrounding flames, he clashed head-on with the enemy's water magic. He performed every move perfectly, while Klaus and the other slaves watched the incredible scene unfold in pure amazement. The boy's special vision lets him see hidden letters and patterns in the magic. Klaus realizes this kid has a natural, high compatibility with ancient magic. The grimoire in the kid's hand glowed brilliantly, reacting to the boy's presence. Kid keeps running through the chaos, displaying the skills of a true prodigy. Klaus knows that despite his talent, the boy is still just a beginner. Malik prepares another powerful spell, realizing his opponent isn't a normal slave. Kid dodges multiple water blasts as he continues his desperate run. Klaus reaches out his hand, shouting for the boy. A massive burst of fire and magic surrounds the kid as he tries to break through. His only thought is getting that book back into the old man's hands. He dashes through the flames, ignoring the danger all around him. Malik blocks his path with a massive, swirling wall of water magic. The mage's eyes narrow as he prepares to end the struggle. Kid looks tiny as the enormous wave towers over him. He pushes through the magic clash with everything he's got left. With one final effort, he tosses the grimoire toward the old man. The book sails through the air, while Kid is swept away by the torrent of water. He called out to Klaus, tossing the remaining mana stones to the old man just before being swallowed by the surge of magic. Klaus snatched the mana stones out of the air as magical energy began to swirl and surge around him. A massive shockwave of power erupts, blinding everyone in the vicinity. The force of the blast sends Kid flying through the air. He crashes onto the stone floor, his body battered by the impact. Looking up, he can barely recognize the battlefield through the smoke. A resolute smile appeared on Klaus's face. The tide had turned, and he was now the one in full control of the battlefield. The mage stands tall, declaring that everything ends here. Malik's heart skipped a beat at the sight. Now the true battle between these two old monsters officially begins. Malik mocks Klaus, asking if the old man really thought he had a chance to win. Guards drag in a line of children, all of them bound by heavy iron chains. The kids look completely broken, their heads shaved and covered in surgical scars. Klaus is horrified to see the missing children from the town among the prisoners. Kid notices something terrifying. Glowing mana stones have been embedded directly into the children's chests. Malik grabs one of the kids, showing off his handiwork without a shred of remorse. He explains that he created these living batteries specifically to fuel his power. To him, these children are just special jewels meant to be used up for his research. Even his own henchmen cowered in the corners, trembling as they listened to the mage's sick and twisted explanation. One small boy lies motionless on the ground, his strength completely spent. Klaus and the boy can only watch in stunned silence as the horror unfolds. The guards cowered in fear as, one by one, the children collapsed onto the cold floor. Klaus finally loses it, screaming at Malik for resorting to human experimentation. The victims of Malik's madness are scattered across the floor, barely clinging to life. Kid stares at the scars, unable to process how someone could be this heartless. Malik doesn't care. He thinks these children were destined to die like trash anyway. As his anger boils over, a strange light begins to flicker deep within the boy's eyes. Malik continues to treat the children like disposable tools for his experiments. He laughs, telling them they should feel honored to be useful for his research. Klaus roars the villain's name, his voice full of pure, unadulterated rage. Malik's face twists into a sadistic grin as he draws more power from his book. Dark, shadowy magic erupts from the Grimoire, flooding the entire area. Panic breaks out among the slaves as the mansion starts to collapse around them. Klaus desperately tries to use his magic to protect the people from the falling debris. Kid watches the overwhelming display, finally understanding the true gap in their power. A massive surge of energy explodes, threatening to consume everyone in the room. Klaus is pushed to his absolute limit, barely managing to hold back the tide. Malik basks in the destruction, savoring every second of his perceived victory. He tells Klaus to just give up, enjoying the sight of his rival on his knees. The mage promises to use every last drop of their blood for his future experiments. Despite the pain, Kid forces himself to stand back up. He knows that if he doesn't do something now, none of them will make it out alive. His hands wrap around a large, glowing mana stone as he prepares one final gamble. Kid grips the glowing mana stone, determined to channel the same power he felt once before. He concentrates intensely, desperately trying to recall the exact sensation of that magical flow. His eyes suddenly flare with a radiant purple light as a complex pattern begins to form within them. The thought of remaining a test subject in this hellhole for the rest of his life is unbearable. A grim determination settles on his face. He is ready to do whatever it takes to escape. He focuses his will into the stone, which begins to pulse with a volatile red energy. His gaze is fixed on the world outside, far away from the chains of his slavery. A massive, violent vortex of dark mana erupts from the boy, engulfing the entire room. Malik Lanberic looks on in horror, his composure shattered by the sheer scale of the boy's power. Klaus watches the spectacle in shock, his own grimoire glowing in response to the massive energy surge. Standing at the center of the magical storm, Kid prepares to unleash his full fury. His glowing eyes fixate on his captor, and the surrounding guards with cold, calculated intent. Malik's expression shifts from disbelief to pure rage as the situation spirals out of his control. A chilling, satisfied smile crosses Kid's face as he loses himself in the surge of power. He screams for everything to burn to the ground, unleashing the inferno trapped within the stone. A gargantuan explosion of mana and fire consumes the mansion, signaling the end of Malik's tyranny. Malik Lanberic stares in utter disbelief. He can't wrap his head around how a mere slave is pulling off ancient magic without even touching a grimoire. He's visibly rattled, sweat beaded on his forehead as he watches his authority crumble in real time. The kid doesn't care about the shock. He grips the red stone tight as a massive swirl of purple and orange flames erupts around him. One's eyes glow with a strange, intricate pattern. He's done talking. He's ready to burn this entire place to the ground. Witnessing this, Klaus began to panic, wondering if the boy was actually driving the mana stones into a complete frenzy. On the opposing side, Malik frantically scrambled for his grimoire. his hands trembling violently as he realized the terrifying scale of the power before him. Malik isn't going down without a fight. He summons a torrent of dark water, still trying to act like he's the one in control. He screams out, lashing out with insults and calling the boy nothing more than a filthy slave. The water slams into the kid's fire, but the flames don't even flicker. They just keep pushing back. It's a violent collision of elements, steam and sparks flying everywhere as the two powers grind against each other. Malik reaches out desperately, cursing his luck as his spell fails to break through. The whole room is a battlefield of swirling energy, with the two of them locked in a high-stakes stalemate. The kid doesn't stop. He takes a steady step forward, right into the heart of the heat. He walks through the fire like it's nothing, his gaze fixed on the man who treated him like property. The guards see the absolute chaos unfolding and start backing off, their bravado completely gone. Malik loses his mind, screaming at his men to stop being cowards and deal with the slave. The guards shout back their compliance, but they aren't exactly rushing into the line of fire. The boy just watches them with those cold, glowing eyes, unimpressed by their threats. A couple of guards try to look tough and charge, but they're mostly just worried about getting caught in the blast. The kid isn't just focused on Malik, he's thinking about how to get the other kids out of this hellhole. He realizes he has to clear a path and he's ready to do it. In that case, he shouts over to Klaus, warning the old man about the guards coming up from behind him. Klaus looks up, shocked to see the boy he was protecting taking charge of the situation. He glances back at the group of terrified slaves huddled together, realizing this might be their only chance. The boy lets loose a massive blast, swiping his arm and sending a wave of fire crashing toward the guards. A huge pillar of mana and flame rips through the air, lighting up the entire room. The guards are sent flying, unable to even stand against the sheer force of the eruption. The heat is overwhelming, and the fire starts to consume the surroundings as people scream in terror. Malik is stuck watching his domain turn into an oven, cursing under his breath as everything falls apart. The kid's feet stay firmly planted as the magic continues to swirl and surge around him. Malik is finally seeing the writing on the wall, and the fear is starting to show on his face. Through the flickering light, one looks more like an unstoppable force of nature than a slave. Klaus isn't wasting any time. He tells the others to get up and run while they still can. He leads the group away through the smoke, leaving the boy to handle the final stand. Malik tries one last desperate water spell, but the fire just cuts right through it like paper. The old mage is struggling to even keep his feet as the pressure of the kid's magic mounts. A clean slash of fire tears right through Malik's last line of defense. One doesn't let up for a single second, pressing the advantage. Malik was forced to retreat, desperately trying to maintain a magical shield while muttering in disbelief about losing to a mere brat. He's completely losing his mind now, yelling that this outcome is absolutely impossible. But the magical shield before him has already begun to crack under the pressure. With a deafening shatter, the entire energy shield crumbled as the mana finally reached its absolute breaking point. Malik Landberrick is caught in the middle of a massive firestorm, his entire world literally burning down around him. A close-up of his eye shows pure terror as he realizes he's lost control of the situation. He lets out a final, desperate scream as the flames consume everything he spent his life building. The kid stands tall in the center of the wreckage, the fire swirling around him like it's an extension of his own body. Malik is on his knees, completely broken. He can't believe a piece of trash just ruined his life's work. Reaching out one last time, he tried to cast a forbidden spell, refusing to accept that his entire plan had gone up in smoke. He starts screaming again, calling the boy garbage and telling him to just die already. One is surrounded by a terrifying vortex of energy, and he doesn't look like he's in the mood to talk. Gathering every last drop of his dark mana, Malik attempted to ensnare the boy within a gargantuan orb of energy. He puts everything into this last-ditch effort, his face contorted with pure desperation. The barrier between them starts to crack under the intense pressure of the clashing magic. But it isn't enough. The energy backfires, and Malik is silenced as he's slammed by the overwhelming force. One looks completely unfazed, telling the old mage to just stay out of his way from now on. Malik is left screaming in the middle of the inferno as the boy simply walks away. The evil mage is finally finished, slumped on the ground while the dungeon continues to burn. Klaus watches from the shadows, amazed that a kid who just awakened could overpower a mage of Malik's caliber. One turns to him, wanting to know if this guy is as evil as he seems. He wants to make sure Malik pays for his crimes, and Klaus gives him a firm nod of approval. The old man flung open his grimoire, preparing to sweep away the remnants of the enemy. He slots a green gem into a magic circle, agreeing that it's finally time for them to leave. Magic light flares up around him as he activates a spell to get them out. Klaus tells one they're taking Malik up to the surface with them to face real justice. The kid's fist is still glowing with mana as he grips a red jewel tight. He takes a breath, focusing his remaining energy as they prepare for the final ascent. Klaus caught the boy's falling body, telling him to pull himself together for what was to come. They both agree that it's time to move and leave the dungeon behind for good. They make their way out, leaving the burning wreckage of the Landberic mansion behind them. They climb the stairs, heading toward a blinding light coming from the top. One has to shield his eyes. The sun is a lot brighter than he ever remembered it being. He looks up at the vast blue sky and the clouds for the first time in years. He can barely believe it. He's actually outside, away from the chains and the dark. He turns to Klaus, a look of pure relief on his face. They actually made it out. But the moment doesn't last. A group of men spots them and starts shouting for the old man. One of them points a finger right at one, screaming that he's the one they're looking for. Guards come charging in, accusing the slave of being the arsonist who burned down the mansion. Fast forward to a crowded courtroom, where one is stuck in a prisoner box, heavily shackled. A judge slams his gavel, making it official. The kid is being charged with arson. He points out that the defendant is just a slave and notes the destruction of Malik's mansion. The guy doesn't even want to hear a defense, saying there's no need for any questioning. He shouts the verdict, death. The crowd immediately joins in, calling for the boy's head. They're jeering and throwing insults, calling him a filthy slave and demanding he be killed already. One looks back at them with cold, defiant eyes as the judge orders the guards to take him away. The kid starts to protest, but his voice is small against the weight of the court's judgment. Suddenly, a new voice cuts through the tension as a man enters the room with a calm, commanding presence. It's the old man from the dungeon, now revealed as the esteemed Lord Klaus, and he's raising a formal objection to the proceedings. One looks back, stunned to see the old man standing there in such fine, noble clothes. Whispers break out among the spectators. Everyone recognizes Klaus as the legendary orchestrator of miracles and wonders why he's here. Klaus challenges the court, calling the death sentence premature and biased because of the boy's status. He turns his gaze directly toward the center of power, asking for the opinion of the highest authority in the room. High above on his throne, the king sits silently, watching the unexpected scene unfold before him. The king acknowledges Klaus, nodding that it has been a very long time since they last met. Klaus stands protectively beside one, who is still dirty and bruised from the ordeal at the mansion. The king maintains that the verdict is fair by law, given that the defendant is legally a slave. He asks Klaus why a man of his stature would go so far to protect a child like this. With total confidence, Klaus declares that he's protecting the kid because the boy is his personal disciple. The king's eyes widen in disbelief. The idea of a slave being a mage's disciple is unheard of. The entire courtroom erupts into chaos at the suggestion that a mere slave could have awakened magical power. Klaus has already seen the potential in one, knowing the power of the jewels the boy now possesses. A close-up of one's eyes shows the intense, pinkish glow of a mage who has truly awakened. Klaus smiles confidently, knowing that the real show is just about to begin. The kid smirks as well, finally feeling the surge of magic power returning to his body. He clutches a glowing blue gem, finally understanding what Klaus meant about seizing his own destiny. Looking up at the judges and the crowd, he realizes that words alone won't change their minds. He knows he has to demonstrate his worth through action if he wants to be seen as more than just property. Shackled but defiant, one holds his grimoire tight and prepares to reveal the truth about who the real villain is. The royal court is in an uproar as the nobles watch the spectacle unfolding before them. They can't believe a common slave is actually using water magic. They look down from the balcony, scoffing at the idea of a filthy slave awakening such power. A hand hovers over a magic book as they mutter that this whole thing is simply impossible. Standing in the center of the hall, the boy manifests a massive swirl of water that towers over him. The spectators lean over the railing, their faces a mix of shock and pure disbelief. From his high seat, the king watches the display with a stoic, unreadable expression. Water dances around his fingertips as he stares back at the crowd, completely unfazed. One noble stands up and starts screaming, refusing to believe a common slave could achieve what many highborns only dream of. The boy keeps his head down, clutching his grimoire while the man continues his tirade about social status. Listening to the nobles rambling, he quickly grows tired of the same old bloodline nonsense. With a flick of his wrist, he sends a surge of water shooting straight toward the balcony. The blast crashes right in front of the yapping noble, cutting him off mid-sentence. The man stares wide-eyed at the water hovering inches from his face, breaking out in a cold sweat. The boy speaks up, pointing out that all they ever talk about is bloodlines and looking down on everyone else. He looks the court dead in the eye and asks if being a noble gives them a free pass to kill people. He demands an answer, his gaze sharp enough to cut through the tension in the room. The noble stammers, unable to find his voice with a blade of water aimed at his face. Finally, he manages to bark out that murder is obviously not allowed. A voice from the crowd agrees that murder is never permitted under any circumstances. A small, cold smirk plays on the boy's lips as he hears exactly what he wanted. He points a finger back at the court, stating that in that case, someone else deserves punishment a lot more than he does. The room goes quiet as everyone waits for his next move. He clenches his fist, the water dripping off his arm as he brings up Malik's attempt on his life. He shifts the focus to Malik, accusing him of sacrificing children for human experiments and asking why he isn't the one on trial. The king turns his attention toward Klaus, seeking confirmation of these heavy accusations. Klaus steps forward and places a hand on the boy's shoulder, confirming that everything he said is the truth. He tells the king he wouldn't be standing there in one piece without the boy, and suggests they search Malik's stone basement for proof. The boy's expression darkens as he thinks back to the children Malik brought into that hellish manner. He recalls the scarred faces of his fellow slaves, knowing the evidence of Malik's cruelty is still hidden in the ruins. He looks up at the king, warning that if this country executes people just for being slaves, he has no reason to stay. With water swirling around him again, he declares he'll fight back with everything he's got and leave for good. The nobles flinch as a spray of water hits the front of the gallery. Klaus watches him carefully, adding a final, heavy thought to the conversation. He asks the king if they can really afford to let such a rare and powerful mage just walk away. The king remains silent for a moment, his eyes fixed on the young mage below. The boy and Klaus stand side by side, waiting for the final verdict. The king finally breaks the silence, agreeing that losing such talent is out of the question. He stands up and calls for an end to the trial, ordering his knights to raid Malik's manor immediately. With the order given, the two turn their backs on the court and start heading out. Before they can leave, the king calls Klaus's name one last time. He gives a stern warning, telling Klaus to keep a very close eye on his new disciple. Klaus bows respectfully, promising to do exactly as commanded. Walking through the streets as the sun sets, the boy stretches his arms out, finally feeling the weight of his chains gone. He thanks the old man for the help. Klaus looks him over, nodding how much better he looks now that he's out of those slave rags. Klaus comments that with the new clothes, he looks like a completely different person. The boy looks at Klaus skeptically, wondering if the strongest mage title is actually legit. Klaus isn't amused. He tells the brat to drop the old man act and start calling him Master, reminding him he's not just a mage, but a Grimoire mage. The boy doesn't care about titles. He just wants to know where the magic stones are and what he needs for the trip. He even suggests just foraging for food in the forest to save time, but Klaus tells him to settle down. Klaus sighs at his impatience, reiterating that as his disciple, he's going to stay put and study the basics first. The boy's face falls. He has zero interest in becoming a scholar, he just wants to find the stones. Klaus pulls him closer and tells him to listen carefully. He explains that the world is currently a death trap, with demons from the west launching indiscriminate attacks across the nations. Klaus warns that a reckless kid who can't even defend himself properly wouldn't last a day traveling alone. Klaus's gaze is sharp behind his glasses, driving home the reality of the situation. He bluntly tells the boy he'd be dead before he even managed to leave the human realm. Despite the warning, the boy clenches his fist, his heart still set on finding those stones. He turns to Klaus and reminds him that he was the one who told him a world like this existed in the first place. He looks his new master in the eye, his resolve unshaken. Klaus closes his eyes, acknowledging the boy's point with a heavy sigh. Klaus gives him a playful tap on the head with a ruler, telling him that's exactly why he needs to learn. He explains that to reach his goal, he has to become a proper Grimoire mage first. He emphasizes that finding the stones requires knowledge that the boy simply doesn't have yet. Klaus starts explaining the complexities of magic, their properties, classifications, and the secrets hidden within them. He tells him that once he understands the mechanics, the way he sees the world will completely change. By studying at the Magic Tower, he'll gain the authority and power he currently lacks to actually find what he's looking for. Klaus advises him to use the Magic Tower's reputation to his advantage. It's the only way to ensure he can live the life he wants in such a dangerous world. The boy goes quiet, taking in the old man's words. He looks at his hands, thinking about the future and the power he needs to grasp. He envisions the radiant magic stones, knowing that to live his own way, he has to master the path Klaus laid out. Finally, he gives in, agreeing to follow his master's lead for now. He decides he'll give this Magic Tower place a shot. But he adds a caveat with a smirk. The moment he feels like he's wasting his time, he's out. He points to himself confidently, declaring that his journey will start immediately after. Klaus lets out a small, satisfied smile that works for him. He officially welcomes his new disciple to the Magic Tower. As night falls, the massive, imposing structure of the Magic Tower looms over the surrounding city. But before any magic training can start, there's a more pressing issue: getting the boy clean. He protests as the staff drags him toward a bath. They scrub him down relentlessly, complaining that his hair is so tangled they can barely get their fingers through it. After a long soak, the boy is finally shiny and clean, looking much more like a proper apprentice. It's the kid's first day at the Magic Tower, and the place is massive. He thinks back to what the tower master told him yesterday. Klaus explains that this tower is the country's main defense against the demon race, specializing in ancient magic. The elder mage says most people here are either running missions for the country or buried in research. They walk past the Great Hall, which serves as the center for all their activities. The kid looks around, taking in the scale of the organization. Klaus stops at a staircase and tells the boy to head up and finish his registration. The kid pauses, wondering if his master is coming along. Klaus says he's got his own business to handle, so the kid is on his own for this. The old man gives him a final word of encouragement before they split up. It's a long, winding climb up the spiral stairs. By the time he reaches the top, the boy is completely out of breath. He hears voices echoing from the floor above. He finally spots the registration desk. But something else catches his eye first. He stares in shock at the center of the hall. A massive book the size of a ballroom is open on the floor. Giant gears turn in the walls, powering the whole display. Mages are literally walking across the giant pages. The kid can't believe the scale of the thing. He watches as people interact with floating symbols on the pages. He wonders what everyone is actually doing down there. A staff member calls out to him, using his new alias, Klaus. The kid jumps, still not used to the name. The woman says she was expecting him and leads him toward the desk. She quickly finishes the paperwork and prints out his official identification. The kid stares at the glowing badge on the tray. He picks up the device, which is embedded with a blue magic stone. The stone glows as he holds it close. She explains that a higher rank means better pay and more access to the tower's secrets. The staff member tells him to do his best as an apprentice. The kid is eager to get started and asks if there are any missions available right now. She points him toward the giant wall display, calling it the Memoria. She explains it stores every record and mission from the tower's long history. To access it, he just needs to touch the interface. The boy reaches out a hand toward the glowing surface. The system recognizes his fingerprint and authenticates him as Klaus. His profile pops up, showing his current rank as apprentice. She mentions that the Memoria also responds to voice commands. The kid doesn't hesitate and says he wants to pick a mission. The wall lights up with a list of active requests. But then she drops a catch. As an apprentice, he isn't allowed to go out alone. The screen blinks to life with a list of available tasks, highlighting a spot for his first official assignment. The kid doesn't waste time scrolling through the easy stuff and goes straight for something big. He points to a mineral vein investigation, surprising the staff with his choice. The receptionist nearly has a heart attack, explaining that this is the kind of mission only graduates take. She warns him that he'll likely run into the demon race out there, which isn't something a rookie should handle. The kid isn't fazed at all, telling her that if it's on the board, he's allowed to take it, and combat isn't an issue. Since he has to go in a pair, he asks who this Lucas guy is that's supposed to be supervising him. The woman looks shocked that he doesn't know the most famous name in the tower. She explains that Lucas Valen is the Tower Master's only disciple, a legendary figure among the mages. The guy is a freak of nature who hit intermediate rank in 4 years, a feat that usually takes a decade. Another staff member chimes in, calling him a straight-up genius. There are even rumors that he's the only person capable of carrying on the Master's research. They keep gushing about how handsome and honorable he is, which the kid finds pretty annoying. He walks away while they gossip, overhearing them say he's basically being treated like a slave for the Tower Master. The boy doesn't seem to care what they think, focused only on his own goals. He looks at the document in his hand, wondering what kind of senior he's about to deal with. He checks the names on the paper one more time before heading to the study. He enters the main wing of the library, the scale of the place still impressive. He finds the specific door he's looking for. He reaches for the handle, ready to get this meeting over with. He tells himself he just has to endure this until his rank goes up. But as soon as he opens the door, he hears a voice yelling about a mess. A blonde guy in a mask is frantically dusting the room like his life depends on it. The study is a disaster zone, and the guy is losing his mind over it. He keeps grumbling about how people shouldn't leave important documents on the floor. The kid stands there awkwardly, while Lucas continues his cleaning spree. Lucas finally notices him and stops mid-scrub. He stands up, puts on a polite smile, and introduces himself as Lucas Valen. He welcomes the kid as his new junior disciple. The boy just stares, not exactly blown away by this supposed genius. Lucas assumes he's nervous and tells him not to worry since he'll be there to help. He asks the kid if he's heard about the introductory mission they're supposed to do. He tells him to ask about anything he doesn't understand. The kid bluntly tells him he's not nervous at all and hands over a piece of paper. He informs Lucas that he's already decided to take a different mission. Lucas is confused, looking at the request for the Southern Forest Mines. He warns the boy that this isn't the kind of place anyone goes for their very first mission. The kid doesn't care about the warning and just asks when they're leaving. Lucas realizes he can't talk him out of it and starts calculating the travel time. The boy simply states they'll leave tomorrow morning and starts to head out. Lucas is left standing there, completely bewildered by the kid's attitude. He tries to say something else, but the kid is already gone. Lucas is left having a mini meltdown about his perfectly organized papers getting messed up again. The kid walks away, lost in thought as he navigates the massive tower. He admits to himself that Lucas seems like a decent person, probably. Back in the study, Lucas sighs as he bends down to pick up the scattered documents. He starts gathering reference materials for their upcoming journey, taking the responsibility seriously. Meanwhile, the boy is already hitting the books, figuring there's no point in being overly friendly. He wants to soak up as much knowledge as possible while he still has the chance. He stacks up every book that looks even remotely useful for their trip. His eyes are sharp and determined. He's going to do whatever it takes to move forward. He's looking at the mission rewards. The right to participate in magic book selection is the real prize here. Every action is geared toward setting out on his journey even one day sooner. Next on the agenda is getting some proper clothes, though he's not exactly thrilled about being poked with needles by the tailors. Finally, in some real gear, he feels ready to go, looking much more like a proper mage than before. Kid wakes up in the middle of the library, surrounded by towers of books. He rubs his eyes, realizing he must have passed out while studying. He looks over the balcony as the morning sun starts to pour in. He spots Lucas down below, already busy at one of the tables. Lucas Valen has a tray filled with glowing jewels laid out in front of him. Kid's eyes sparkle as he catches the faint shimmer of magic inside them. One of the stones pulses with a vibrant violet light. The blonde mage is deep in his notes, cataloging every single detail. He notices the boy is finally awake and offers a quick apology for the wake-up call. Kid shakes it off, his eyes already locked onto the tray of gems. Lucas holds one up, letting the light dance across its surface. To the boy, the intricate energy inside is absolutely beautiful. Lucas mentions that only 3 people in the tower can actually see the ancient sorcery within these stones, and Kid is one of them. He leans in to make sure the boy is actually paying attention to the lesson. Kid points out a strange, golden frame he sees surrounding the core of the jewel. He notices that another gem has a completely different-looking border. Lucas stops writing, surprised that he picked up on such a subtle detail so fast. The boy points to another tray, noting how some of the frames seem to match. Lucas confirms his hunch, explaining that the border designs indicate the type of jewel. He asks for clarification on the 2 types, attribute and derivative. Lucas explains that any gemstone housing ancient sorcery is officially known as a magic stone. Once they're processed so a mage can actually tap into them, they're called jewels. Depending on the specific magic inside, they're split into those 2 main categories. Lucas points to a feather-shaped ornament that controls elemental forces like fire and wind. That specific design marks it as an attribute jewel. Then there's the plant-like ornament, which identifies it as a derivative jewel. These are for more complex effects, like seeing through objects or heightening your hearing. Kid takes it all in, mesmerized by how systematic it all is. Lucas pulls over a massive book and flips it open to a specific page. He shows off the diagrams, explaining that the left and right circuits are built for different jewels. Kid realizes these circuits are what actually draw out the power, and Lucas confirms it. Mages can only use this ancient magic because they have grimoires to act as the conduit. The boy stares at a small blue gem, finally understanding how it all fits together. But a grimoire is more than just a tool. Kid watches as the senior mage's expression turns serious. To any real mage, their book is as important as their own life. It reminded him of the words Klaus used to say back when he had just escaped his life as a test subject. The old man was notoriously protective, warning everyone never to touch his personal grimoire. Lucas holds up a beautifully decorated book, explaining that one perfectly suited to its mage is special. It offers a completely different level of power and makes magic way easier to control. Kid looks down at his hands, wondering if a personal book would really change things that much. Lucas smirks, knowing that's exactly why the boy took on a reckless request. The reward is the right to choose his own grimoire. Back in the library, Kid can't stop thinking about getting his own grimoire while Lucas tells him to put the magic stones back. He smiles, thinking how a book like that would be the most dependable partner on his journey. The next morning, the 2 set off in a carriage towards their mission. They arrive at the southern forest, and Lucas waves goodbye to the driver. The senior mage immediately starts complaining about his aching back and the muddy ground. They reach the mining village, but something feels off the moment they step in. The place is completely deserted, with not a single person in sight. Lucas looks around, the silence making him uneasy. They walk deeper into the town, wondering if the mine entrance is actually this close to the homes. Lucas explains the mine should be just on the other side of the village. Kid notices something on the ground that stops him in his tracks. Looking around, they see clear signs of a struggle with debris scattered everywhere. Suddenly, a demon wolf jumps out, its multiple red eyes glowing with hunger. Lucas recognizes the target immediately and checks to make sure the boy has his borrowed grimoire ready. Kid gives a short nod, his expression hardening as he prepares for his first real fight. It's not just one wolf, though. A whole pack starts closing in from the cliffs. Kid runs through the list of elemental jewels he was lent for this job: fire, water, and earth. He remembers the selection he was given back at the tower, knowing exactly what he has to work with. Lucas considers using fire, but realizes it might burn the whole village down if he's not careful. He tells the kid to stay close and promises to keep him safe from the pack. The blonde mage opens his own grimoire, the pages beginning to glow with power. Kid appreciates the sentiment, but he's not planning on being a burden, activating his own book in a burst of golden light. Kid lets out a small smirk as he grips his grimoire. A bright light shines from his palm, and he tells Lucas he can handle himself. The golden energy pulses on the ground right between Lucas Valen's feet. Surrounded by Soi QU letter 1 EF7, Demon Wolf, the boy notes the rugged power of the jewel he's using. He summons a massive swirl of dust and sand, determined to make it work. A well-placed kick sends one of those many-eyed wolves tumbling back. The red core on the wolf's forehead shatters into glowing shards. Lucas Valen stands ready as the dust from the boy's attack begins to settle. Kid explains that destroying the core stone is the only way to kill these demons. Lucas gives a knowing smile, impressed by the boy's knowledge. He casually brushes off his earlier doubt with a side glance. A well-timed swirl of sand knocks back the surrounding wolves, saving them from the ambush. The two mages stand back to back, combining wind and sand to wipe out the pack. One lone wolf tries to pounce from above, but Lucas has it covered with a flick of his wrist. They take a second to breathe, though the boy seems much more excited than tired. A sudden scream from across the village catches their attention. One of the soldiers is pinned down, a demon wolf sinking its teeth into his arm. The entire village has turned into a war zone, with monsters leaping from every corner. Kid breaks into a sprint, frustrated that they're still too far away to help. He shouts out in a panic, desperate to save the fallen man. Lucas grabs him by the shoulder, reminding him to keep a tight grip on his book. Lucas takes a deep breath and prepares his spell, Dancing Wind. A massive green vortex of air erupts, clearing everything in its path. He pulls the boy into a safer position as the wind magic does its work. The boy's eyes narrow as he watches a soldier struggle against a wolf in the distance. The beast has the man pinned to the ground, ready to finish him off. Lucas and the boy leap through the air, diving straight into the thick of the fight. The boy activates a magic circle from his grimoire while descending. Pillars of earth burst from the ground, trapping the wolves and shielding the soldier. He lands softly and rushes over to check on the injured man. The soldier is just relieved to see real mages, so Lucas tells him to find safety immediately. A low growl echoes through the air as a massive shadow looms over the two mages. A giant wolf lands right in front of them, towering over its smaller kin. Kid's eyes suddenly start to glow with a strange, golden intensity. He peers into the giant beast's forehead and spots a faint golden light inside its core. He asks Lucas if there's any way to take these things down without smashing the stone. To the boy, the light inside the core is beautiful, unlike anything he's seen before. Lucas looks at the beast, but sees nothing but a regular red core stone. Kid realizes he's the only one who can see the golden glow within. Lucas looks at him with a mix of confusion and concern. The boy's obsession with jewels takes over, and he knows he has to have that stone. He tells Lucas that if they want it, they'll have to stop the monster's movements first. Lucas Valen asks if the boy can truly see a golden light hidden within the monster's core. Kid confirms it, nodding the glow is small but unmistakable. Lucas wonders if his young companion has a special vision that he himself lacks. The boy is determined to get his hands on the jewel, and Lucas decides to go along with the crazy request. They coordinate their next move, with the apprentice planning to restrain the beast while the mentor goes for the kill. Lucas observes the Soi Q letter 1 EF7, demon wolf, struggling as his wind magic begins to coil around it. With a sharp command, he unleashes Windbind to pin the massive wolf in place. He shouts out, signaling that the first part of their plan is successful. Kid prepares a jewel, focusing his mind on the exact result he wants. He begins to magically break down the solid ground around the demon into fine particles. Lucas maintains his hover above the beast, keeping the pressure of his wind magic constant. The apprentice concentrates harder, forcing the earth to disintegrate into even finer grains. The terrain beneath the wolf's paws quickly turns into tiny, shifting grains of sand. Trapped in the vortex of wind and sand, the monster howls in protest. Kid reaches for another jewel, his fingers grazing the magic circles in his grimoire. He summons a massive torrent of water, pouring it into the pit around the monster. With a sharp movement, he pulls the elemental mixture upward. The combination of water and earth creates a thick mud that instantly hardens around the beast's legs. With the wolf firmly stuck in the mire, Lucas sees the perfect opening and prepares his final strike. He focuses his mana and chants for a wind blade to finish the job. The mentor mage looks down with cold precision as he launches the cutting gale. The sharp wind blade strikes the demon's head, but it's deflected with a shower of sparks. Lucas is stunned to see his signature attack fail to even scratch the creature. He realizes the beast's hide is much tougher than any normal wolf they've faced. Kid watches the failed attack, his mind already racing for an alternative. He looks down at the jewels in his hand, knowing he has to change tactics. He remembers a simple truth: if wind isn't enough for something hard, you have to apply heat. He shouts at Lucas to launch the exact same wind attack one more time. Though confused, Lucas trusts the boy's instincts and immediately begins casting. The apprentice activates a fire jewel, channeling its intense heat into his book circuit. Scorching red energy begins to swirl, ready to be merged with the mentor's magic. He stares intently at the air, wondering if he has the precision to pull this off. As Lucas fires his wind, a massive magic circle appears, drawing the boy's fire into the gale. Lucas is completely shocked to see his own spell being hijacked and modified midair. The boy successfully merges the two elements, creating a blade of superheated cutting air. The Soi Q letter 1 EF7, demon wolf, lets out a pained scream as the searing wind begins to bite through its hide. Kid pushes himself further, pouring every bit of fire mana he can into the strike. He shouts with everything he's got, demanding more heat from the jewel. Lucas matches the boy's intensity, keeping the wind's edge sharp and focused. The flaming wind blade finally slices through, decapitating the giant monster in one clean sweep. The red core stone is knocked loose, flying into the air as the beast's body collapses. It lands on the ground, glowing beautifully and completely unharmed by the battle. As the dust settles, the Soi Q letter 1 EF7, demon wolf, is nowhere to be seen, leaving only a trail of energy in the air. Lucas Valen lands gracefully back on the wooden platform after the intense battle. Relieved, Lucas smiles and calls out to Kid, celebrating their successful strike. He shouts for the boy's attention as Kid leaps from the platform toward the falling core. Midair, the apprentice reaches out with all his might to catch the precious stone before it hit the ground. The glowing red core hangs in the air, framed perfectly by the apprentice's outstretched hands. Kid lands with the stone in his grasp, his face lit up with pure joy and a sense of accomplishment. In a light-hearted moment, Lucas explains that wind magic alone wasn't enough to handle such a dangerous situation. The two bicker playfully about the risks taken during the fight, their bond growing stronger through the shared victory. Kid beams with joy as he clutches the prize they just fought for. Lucas Valen watches him, genuinely impressed that they actually managed to pull it off. The boy stares at the glowing red gem in his palm, their first demon core stone. Lucas thinks the kid's raw skill is already on the level of a mid-ranked mage. He's particularly floored by how easily the boy synchronized his magic with another person's spell. The senior mage realizes he's looking at a natural-born talent. Lucas can't help but smile, knowing he's landed one hell of a junior disciple. Kid continues to examine the stone, noticing something strange about its appearance. He points it out to his mentor, asking if he sees the golden glow emanating from it. Lucas Valen leans in to get a better look at the stone in Kid's hands. He squints at the gem, searching for any sign of the light the boy mentioned. He doesn't see anything, so he decides to just ask the master about it once they're back. Lucas notes that if it really contains ancient magic, they could turn it into a powerful weapon. The village guards wave them over, shouting to check if the mages are all right. The blond man confirms the mission is a success, while Kid keeps his eyes on the village. Suddenly, Kid's expression shifts as a strange sensation hits him. He glances back toward the woods, feeling like he heard something. A faint voice seems to be calling out to the boy from the shadows. The voice echoes again, sounding like it's trying to say his name. A strange light begins to pulse from beneath the boy's clothes. Lucas snaps him out of it with a hand on his shoulder, calling his name. Lucas Valen wants to double-check their supplies before they head into the mine. Kid gives a distracted answer as his senior starts walking toward the village. The boy looks back one last time before following his companion. They head to a large, well-kept house in the center of the village. Inside, a family celebrates their safety while Kid watches from the window. Lucas confirms the jewels and his book are in good shape. Kid asks if it's time to inspect the mine veins, and Lucas explains the protocol. The idea of finding massive chunks of magic stones gets the boy pretty hyped up. The mentor tells him to settle down and not go running off, but Kid is still focused on that weird feeling. An old man with a long beard suddenly bursts in, shouting for them to stop. He forbids them from entering the mine, warning them not to anger Lord Aonuma. Lucas Valen looks at him, confused, and asks who this Aonuma guy is. The old man explains that Lord Aonuma is the ancient guardian of the forest. Kid and his partner listen as the elder speaks with a mix of fear and reverence. A younger villager tries to pull the man back, but he's too worked up to listen. Lucas whispers to Kid that they don't really have a choice, but to proceed with the job. He tells the old man they have work to do and pushes past him toward the exit. The two of them head out, leaving the shouting elder behind as they enter the cave. Once they're inside the mine, Kid asks if Lord Aonuma is some kind of phantom beast. Lucas Valen leads the way deeper into the cavern, where glowing crystals light the path. He explains that phantom beasts are rare creatures that aren't quite animals or demons. Lucas explains that their whole bodies are actually made of magic stones, which leaves Kid completely stunned. Legends say these creatures can live for over a millennium and use ancient magic like it's nothing. It's believed that many of these phantom beasts are still hiding across the continent, in places the magic tower hasn't even found yet. Because they're so rare and powerful, people often end up worshipping them as gods. Kid wonders if there might be one right here, but Lucas warns him that finding an unregistered one is basically impossible. He tells the boy not to get his hopes up, since they don't exactly just show up for everyone. Lucas adds that they are essentially gods who act on their own whims. If a phantom beast takes a special liking to a mage, they might choose to intervene. In those rare cases, they grant a one-of-a-kind gift that can change everything. The senior mage admits it's all basically a fairy tale, since it's only briefly mentioned in ancient books. Kid repeats the idea of a god that gives gifts, looking intrigued. He tries to imagine what a body made entirely of magic stones would even look like. The boy thinks that if they live that long, they might be able to explain the true nature of magic stones. Kid smiles to himself, wondering if the voice he heard earlier could have been one. Lucas breaks his train of thought by announcing that they've arrived. Kid stares ahead, mesmerized by what he sees. A massive vein of magic stones is embedded right in the cave walls. He walks closer to the glowing clusters, drawn in by the light. The boy reaches out a hand to touch one of the jagged crystals. Up close, the beauty of the stones is even more overwhelming. Lucas notes that seeing the golden light makes investigating the vein pretty easy work. Kid remembers that people who can't see the light have to rely on tools for this. He hears that faint plea for help echoing in his mind once again. Kid snaps his head around, looking for the source of the voice. Suddenly, the ground beneath his feet starts to crack and give way. Kid cries out in shock as he loses his footing and tumbles into the dark. He falls straight down into a deep pit, with Lucas shouting his name from above. The boy crashes into the bottom of the cavern with a heavy thud. He groans in pain, clutching his arm as he tries to sit up. When he opens his eyes, they begin to glow with a brilliant, swirling light. Kid looks around and realizes he's ended up in a place hidden away from the rest of the mine. The entire chamber is filled with massive, radiant crystals that light up the darkness. He's completely speechless, wondering if every single thing he sees is made of magic stones. The boy stands alone in the center of the hidden cavern, surrounded by a mountain of glowing gems. Kid stares at the glowing crystals. Everything in here is stunning. His senior brother shouts down the hole to check on him. Kid yells back that he's doing fine. As he walks deeper, the blue glow of the cave gets even darker. His senior brother promises to find a way down. Kid stops in his tracks when he hears a weird sound echoing. Something is moving nearby. A giant crystalline creature suddenly pops out from the darkness. Kid just stands there, totally shocked. The creature glides through the air, leaving a trail of water and light. Kid looks up at the massive thing, wondering if it's even alive. He catches a scent that feels strangely familiar. He stays still, watching to see if the giant is hostile. Suddenly, a voice starts talking right inside his head. It tells him he doesn't need to be on guard. Kid realizes the entire body of the creature is actually made of magic stones. He asks out loud if he's actually seeing a mythical beast. Lord Aonuma confirms it, his voice echoing in the boy's mind. Kid figures out this was the same voice calling to him earlier. Lord Aonuma tells him his eyes are special and let him see the world like a mythical beast does. He explains that while people with eyes like his used to be everywhere, they're super rare now. Kid is confused and asks what he means by the same world. He wonders if the creature is talking about that golden light he keeps seeing. Kid looks down at his hands and sees they're covered in glowing golden symbols. Lord Aonuma just laughs at the boy's confusion. He explains that the golden light is ancient magic and is surprised Kid had no idea. Lord Aonuma says their eyes reflect the mana filling the world and the magic inside stones. Kid asks why nobody else can see any of this stuff. The beast doesn't know why he has those eyes, but says an old friend called them a gift for those loved by the world. It repeats the old saying one more time, sounding almost nostalgic. Kid stares at his hands, trying to wrap his head around being loved by the world. He looks up, clearly still processing everything he's hearing. Kid reaches out and touches the creature's side. It feels ice cold. It's a strange sensation, like cold water is flowing right under his skin. He can't help but think that mythical beasts are truly beautiful. A surge of energy pushes Kid back. Lord Aonuma thanks him, saying no one has ever told him that before. He mentions the 7-star kings. Kid is caught off guard and asks what the 7-star kings are. The beast explains they're the top-tier ancient creatures, the noble kings of their kind. They're known as the pillars of the world, and they're incredibly powerful. Kid is blown away. He can't believe there are 7 beings even crazier than this one. Lord Aonuma sighs, saying it's been forever since he last saw them. Kid jokes that living for thousands of years must be pretty exhausting. The beast says it's time for him to go back to sleep. Kid asks where he can find those 7-star kings. Kid tries to ask about ancient magic, but Lord Aonuma tells him not to worry about it. He calls Kid a beloved child of the world and says his love is exceptionally bright. He leaves Kid with a final thought. Those eyes will eventually lead him right to the 7-star kings. Lord Aonuma tells Kid that the 7-star kings will lead him to the source of magic. He then tells the boy to hold out his hand. The ancient beast decides to grant a humble blessing to the young mage. Kid stands there in awe as the massive creature looms over him. It explains the gift is a scale filled with centuries of mana. Kid asks if it's a magic stone. He stares at the glowing blue gem that's now resting in his hands. Lord Aonuma assures him that he'll definitely reach his destination. Kid looks down at the gift, still feeling a bit overwhelmed. He tries to ask more questions, but the creature starts to vanish into the light. He's left wondering about this primal magic stone as the cavern fades away. A dazzling light fills his vision for a moment. Suddenly, his senior brother's voice breaks the silence, calling out for him. Lucas Valen finally tracks him down and is relieved to see he's okay. Kid looks around in confusion, noticing the magical cavern has completely disappeared. He tries to make sense of everything that just happened. He realizes the mythical beast must still be sleeping somewhere deep in the mine. Lucas Valen notices the glowing stone and asks what he's got there. Kid hesitates, wondering how to explain a blessing from a mythical beast. He mentions it might be a scale from a mythical beast, which catches his brother off guard. Lucas Valen is totally baffled, while Kid struggles to come up with a better explanation. The story shifts back to the towering spires of the magic tower. Back at the lab, Klaus takes a good look at the two stones Kid brought back. He notes how unique they are and asks Kid for the mission report. Klaus tells them he'll report the details to the higher-ups himself. The tower master gazes at the glowing blue stone with a thoughtful expression. He tells Kid that since it was a gift to him, he should be the one to polish it. Kid is thrilled and asks to be taught how, while Klaus eyes the demon core stone. Klaus tells him to go pick out his grimoire while he gets the equipment ready. Kid is beyond excited at the mention of getting his very own grimoire. He immediately bolts out the door, leaving the others behind. He drags Lucas Valen along, telling him they need to hurry up. His senior brother can barely keep up with his sudden burst of speed. They finally reach the entrance of the massive archive. Kid is buzzing with excitement to finally have a magic book of his own. They stand before a set of massive, heavily chained doors guarded by two men. The heavy lock clicks open, and the chains begin to fall away. Kid watches eagerly as the giant doors slowly start to swing open. He steps into a massive, starlit library to choose his very own grimoire. The golden bells chime, signaling the official start of the ceremony. At the reception desk, students line up to hand over their paperwork as the staff logs them in. Deep within the tower, the ancient clockwork gears begin to turn, powering the magic of the library. Mages in training gather in the hall, buzzing with excitement about the grimoire selection ceremony. The gossip starts almost immediately, everyone staring at Alan, wondering how a slave managed to get the right to participate. The crowd continues to filter into the grand hall, though the whispers don't seem to stop. Some students are convinced that a mere rookie like him will just be flat-out rejected by the books. They bring up legends of the past, like Tower Master Klaus, whose book supposedly glowed with a pure gold light during his ceremony. As Alan walks past, they keep comparing him to the legendary records stored in the tower's memory. A blonde student stops him for a moment, her eyes filled with worry about what he's about to face. Alan ignores the noise and heads straight for the massive, chained doors of the inner sanctum. He wonders if the book he's meant to find is really waiting for him behind those heavy gates. The real Lucas Valen leads the way, explaining that this is the Grimoire library where masterless books are kept. He tells Alan to listen closely, because the next few minutes will determine everything. In this ceremony, it's not the mage who picks the book, it's the grimoire that chooses the user. The rules are non-negotiable. You can't just reach out and grab a book off the shelves yourself. If a book chooses him, he's to bring it out. Otherwise, he has to leave with absolutely nothing. Alan realizes the stakes. If he isn't acknowledged today, his journey as a mage might be over before it starts. Lucas confirms that this invitation is only the right to participate, not a guarantee of power. The massive gates finally groan open, flooding the hallway with a blinding, ethereal light. The protagonist takes a deep breath, staring into the radiance. Lucas warns that if he fails, he'll have to train and complete more missions just to get another shot. The scale of the library is staggering, with shelves stretching endlessly into the golden mist. Before Alan heads inside, Lucas pulls something out of his pocket and tells him to take it. He places a small, golden sphere into the boy's open palm. Suddenly, the little orb sprouts wings and takes off, catching Alan completely off guard. It's a memoria, a high-tech magic tool designed to monitor the ceremony and prevent any foul play. The little drone hovers nearby, recording every move he makes for the tower's records. Alan is still a bit startled by how fast it moves, but it's just part of the tower's strict protocol. Lucas tells him not to worry and promises that he'll be right here waiting for his return. With a supportive look, his mentor gives him one last nod of encouragement. He wishes Alan luck, knowing the boy is about to face his destiny. Alan turns around and takes his first step into the sea of books. The silence of the library is heavy as he walks through the towering aisles. Even though the place is still, there's a strange energy humming in the air. It feels less like a building and more like a living, breathing creature watching him. A sudden flash of light from one of the shelves catches his eye. He remembers the warning. Not every single book in this massive collection is a magic grimoire. The ones glowing are the likely candidates, but he has to wait for one to react to him. He catches himself almost reaching out, remembering the strict no-touching policy. It's frustrating. How is he supposed to know if a book has actually chosen him? Suddenly, a massive shadow looms over him from the corner of his eye. Alan spots a figure in the shadows, his mind jumping straight to the worst-case scenario. But as he looks closer, he realizes this presence feels completely different from any demon he's ever encountered. A massive white wolf steps into the light, its fur shimmering with an otherworldly glow. Alan stares into its eyes, frozen by the sight of a creature that shouldn't even exist in a place like this. The wolf suddenly bolts, and Alan shouts out, trying to get its attention as it disappears into the aisles. He doesn't hesitate for a second, sprinting after the spirit as it leads him deeper into the heart of the library. He races through the towering shelves, barely keeping the white blur in his sights. The wolf stops at a clearing, and Alan skids to a halt, looking up in anticipation. Bathed in a pillar of golden light, the creature lets out a silent howl that seems to vibrate through the very walls. Alan finally catches up, catching his breath as he stares at the magnificent beast. He notices the glowing crescent moon on its forehead, a mark of true divinity. Alan stands there, unsure of what the spirit wants from him, until the air starts to hum with power. The wolf sits calmly, watching him as the mark on its head begins to flare with a brilliant light. Without warning, the entire library is consumed by a massive eruption of mana. A shockwave of purple and white light floods the room, blinding Alan in an instant. He's thrown backward by the sheer intensity of the blast, his eyes wide with shock. He slams onto the floor, shielding his face as the magical storm rages around him. Outside, the Memoria drone struggles to record the sheer scale of the energy being released. The floating drone transmits the image of a glowing purple book descending from the light. The students watching the feed are stunned into silence, unable to believe what they're seeing. The whispers start up again, but this time they're filled with awe and terror at the slave's hidden potential. Even the veterans are rattled, noting that even Tower Master Klaus never caused a stir like this. A senior instructor watches the screen, sweating as he realizes this level of compatibility is unheard of. Back in the library, Alan reaches out toward the pulsing grimoire as the light begins to fade. He stares at the book, feeling an unshakable connection to the ancient magic inside it. As his hands close around the cover, he can feel the mana vibrating through his entire body. It's not just a book. Alan can feel a steady pulse coming from it, like the heartbeat of a living creature. He stands there in the silence, processing the fact that he's actually been chosen. The protagonist pulls the book close, surprised by the gentle warmth radiating from the pages. The mana flows into him, a sensation so overwhelming it brings him to the verge of tears. Under the watchful eye of the Memoria, Alan speaks to his new partner for the first time. He gives the grimoire a soft smile, ready to start the real journey that's been waiting for him. Alan stands in the middle of the library as his new grimoire erupts in a blinding flash of purple light. Tower Master Klaus watches the spectacle, shocked that the boy's potential is even higher than he imagined. After things settle down, Alan and Shumil head back to report their success. Alan can barely contain his grin as he shows off the book he managed to snag. Klaus isn't surprised. He was keeping a close eye on the whole ceremony. He takes the grimoire to see exactly what kind of power Alan has tapped into. The master notes it's a bit old, but he can feel the quality of the magic within. He hands it back and tells Alan to make sure he takes good care of it. The mood shifts as Klaus tells them to take a seat because they have a lot to discuss. They settle into the office for some tea, while the atmosphere gets a bit more serious. Alan takes a sip of the tea, pleasantly surprised by how good it smells. Klaus gets straight to the point, asking about the blessing Alan received from the mythical beast. He wants to hear the story one more time to make sure he didn't miss anything. The master asks Alan specifically what the beast said when they met. Alan looks down at his tea, trying to recall every detail of that strange encounter. He remembers the beast calling him a child loved by the world, which still sounds pretty vague. It told him that one day, he'd see the same world that the mythical beasts do. And then it mentioned that the 7-star kings would lead him to the source of all magic. Klaus realizes it might be too early for this, but he decides Alan needs to know the truth. He explains that the 7-star kings are a group of the 7 most famous and powerful mythical beasts. Their existence is known across the entire continent, from the human nations to the land of demons. According to legend, there's a mythical beast ruling over each of those territories. Alan points out that the math doesn't add up. There are only 5 domains on the map. Klaus admits the locations of the remaining 2 kings are a total mystery. Even with all the resources of the magic tower, they haven't found a trace of them. Alan wonders what the source of magic is supposed to be. Klaus believes the beast was talking about something called the Primal Mana Stone. The name rings a bell for Alan, sounding like something out of an old story. Legends say it contains the very first magic ever born into this world. It's a question that has haunted mages for hundreds of years. If anyone ever found it and harnessed its power, they'd uncover the true nature of magic. Klaus leans in, reminding Alan that the beast in the mines told him the 7-star kings would lead him there. Alan nods, finally connecting all the dots. Klaus suggests it might be Alan's destiny to track down those legendary beasts and find the stone. Alan pulls out the magic stone he received as a blessing. Even though it didn't come from a king, the sheer amount of light coming off it is insane. If this is what a regular beast's blessing looks like, he can only imagine what the actual kings are like. Alan looks at the master and tells him he's already made up his mind. He's going to become a great mage and travel the entire continent to find those 7 kings. He wants to see every single magic stone in existence with his own 2 eyes. Klaus warns him to prepare well if he's really going through with such a crazy plan. But the master is worried about more than just a training trip. The demon invasion from the west is already starting to cause chaos. Klaus explains that demons are currently on a warpath, hunting down every mythical beast they can find. He's received reports from the Stoneguard lands that a hidden beast was recently tracked and killed. He warns Alan that if he continues chasing the 7-star kings, he'll be dealing with these demons constantly. Alan isn't backing down, doubling down on his goal to become the strongest mage around. Klaus likes the spirit and tells him to go get his new grimoire checked out at the basement workshop. Alan heads down to the workshop, repeating his master's advice to himself. He walks into a massive room filled with the sounds of hammers and magical experiments. The workshop district is essentially the engine room of the magic tower. Alan is blown away by how busy and full of life the place is. Out of nowhere, an elf smith pops up behind him and asks if he's there for maintenance. Alan nearly has a heart attack before admitting he's looking for some help with his book. She takes the grimoire, tells him it'll be a quick job, and leads him inside. Alan is curious if she can really judge a book's condition with just a quick glance. She lays it out on the table and tells him he's picked a real winner, so he'd better take care of it. While she checks the pages, Alan can't stop staring at her pointed ears. It's his first time seeing a woodfolk in person. She notices him staring and explains that her people have a natural knack for handling magic tools. She adds that the workshop is run by a mix of woodfolk and stone guards. Over at another station, a stone guard craftsman is hard at work shaping a piece of metal. Alan's eyes go wide when he sees a bunch of unpolished magic stones sitting right there. He realizes they even use tiny fragments of these stones just to keep the lanterns lit. The craftsman catches him looking and warns him not to touch, since raw stones can be dangerous. That gets Alan thinking about the bigger picture. He asks the smith if it's true that there's a mythical beast living in the elven territories. She smiles, asking the newbie if he's actually interested in their homeland's protector. Alan is all in, asking what the beast actually looks like. She doesn't have the details since she's just a craftsman, but she points him toward the Guardians. Alan has never heard of Guardians before. She explains they're an elite group of wood folk who spend their entire lives guarding the mythical beast. Her tone gets serious as she notes they know the beast better than anyone else alive. She motions for him to lean in, clearly about to drop some insider info. She tells him that because he smells pretty good for a human mage, she'll let him in on a secret. Alan is just stuck wondering why she's smelling him in the first place. She whispers that an elven merchant caravan is about to arrive at the magic tower. And every year, that caravan is protected by a high-ranking guardian. She tells him to keep it quiet, while Alan realizes this is his best chance to meet one. Miles away, a merchant caravan is kicking up dust as it travels through the wilderness. Lounging on top of a carriage, a blonde elf complains about how boring this escort job is. The driver calls back that they're almost at the magic tower, and she finally perks up. She looks up at the sky, thinking about their destination. A memory from years ago flashes through her mind, a dark night and a difficult battle. She remembers Klaus being an interesting opponent, even when he was beaten and bloodied. Standing silhouetted against a massive moon, the elf guardian looks like a force of nature. She thinks back to her fight with Klaus, certain that no ordinary mage can ever hope to defeat her. Now she's just bored out of her mind, sprawling across the carriage roof and wishing for some excitement. While she shouts for an opponent with some actual backbone, Alan thanks the blacksmith and heads out of the workshop. Alan beams with pride as he holds his glowing grimoire up, his heart set on finding the legendary beasts and their stones. Morning hits the magic tower, and the city is already starting to wake up. Inside, Alan is completely locked in, hunched over his desk. He's been mage that blue gem all night, and he's almost finished. Suddenly, the door swings open. Elias pops his head in to check on him. Elias can't believe it. Alan's been at this since yesterday. The sun is already out, but the kid hasn't moved an inch. He tells Alan to take a break because the traveling merchant market just opened up outside. It's a huge deal. The market is absolutely packed. Stalls are lined up everywhere and people are flooding the streets. Alan's mind is blown. He's never seen stuff like this, strange potions and goods he's only read about. He stops at a stall run by an elf merchant. The level of craftsmanship is on a whole different level. His eyes practically turn into stars when he sees a traditional forest folk wand. It's glowing with actual fire. Alan can't contain his excitement. Everywhere he looks, there's another member of the forest folk showing off something cool. He waves goodbye to the vendor, finally remembering he actually has things to do. No time to get distracted. He notices the elves are patrolling the area pretty heavily. They're taking security seriously. A merchant whispers that there's supposed to be a legendary guardian escorting the group, but they're nowhere to be seen. Alan looks around the crowd. No one stands out as some super powerful warrior. It just looks like a normal crowd. Then a massive explosion rips through the market. Horses freak out and the ground shakes. Alan whips around, trying to figure out where the blast came from. Panic sets in instantly. People start screaming and sprinting away. Someone yells for everyone to run for their lives. A huge cloud of dust kicks up as a massive creature smashes its way into the middle of the street. Alan stands his ground while everyone else flees. He realizes something must have escaped its cage. It's a Morlock and its eyes are glowing blood red. This thing isn't just angry, it's completely lost its mind. The elves are stunned. Morlocks are usually timid creatures, but this one is acting like a killing machine. The beast lets out a deafening roar, towering over the terrified shoppers. It's huge. An elf soldier shouts at the humans to get out of the way before they get crushed. Alan just stands there. The soldier is confused. He's wondering why this kid isn't running like everyone else. The guards try to blast it with fire, but they realize the monster is only weak to water. They're desperate. Alan doesn't hesitate. He opens his grimoire, and a massive swirl of water magic starts to gather. The Morlock roars through the haze, completely unfazed by the small fire attacks. An archer takes a shot, but the monster is moving too fast and smashing everything in sight. A pillar of sand erupts as Alan steps in. He's right in the line of fire, holding his book open. The elves can't believe a kid is out there. They recognize the robe. He's just an apprentice mage from the tower. Alan channels his energy, his hand glowing as he prepares a serious spell. He's not backing down. The elf soldier screams at him to get back. He thinks Alan is going to get himself killed. He thanks Alan for trying to help, but insists this is a job for the forest folk, not a student. Alan starts to protest, but the monster isn't waiting for them to finish their conversation. The archers leap into the air, firing more arrows, but nothing is sticking. The beast is just too tough. The elves are starting to panic. Their arrows aren't doing a thing, and the monster is closing in. The soldier tries to act confident, telling Alan they've got it under control. Alan knows better. They're all thinking the same thing. If Shumil were here, this would have been over already. Suddenly, a new voice calls out from above. Someone finally decided to show up. It's Shumil, and he's just lounging on some crates like he hasn't a care in the world. The other elves are losing it. The Morlock lunges at Alan, and the soldier screams for him to watch out. It's a direct hit. But Alan is ready. He unleashes a massive wave of water and sand from his grimoire, stopping the beast in its tracks. Alan can't believe how fast he's casting. It's like the magic is just flowing out of him effortlessly. The sheer speed is on a completely different level than anything he's done before. The dust is still settling from his first move. Suddenly, a boot slams down right on the Morlock's head. Someone is already standing on top of the beast. Alan looks at his grimoire in total awe. He didn't realize he could pull this much power out so easily. The Morlock isn't down yet, though. It lunges forward, eyes glowing with a sinister red light. Alan prepares for the next round. He's starting to realize just how special this book really is. He pulls out a glowing blue ma th letter 1ea1ch, focusing everything he has into the next spell. He points his hand forward, his face dead serious. It's time to end this. A massive vortex of water starts spinning in the sky above the beast. The scale of the magic is insane. The gem in his hand glows even brighter as he prepares to drop the hammer. The water and sand collide, creating a massive explosion of elemental magic that completely engulfs the Morlock. Alan watches the aftermath, panting a little. He knows he has to stay sharp. The elf archers are losing their minds. They've never seen a beast that could control sand like this. The monster is stuck in the swirling sand, but it's still trying to fight back. Alan keeps his book open and ready. The Morlock roars, trying to shake off the magic. Alan is doing everything he can just to hold it in place. One of the elf soldiers screams for the apprentice to get out of there before the beast snaps. Another massive blast of sand erupts as the Morlock struggles to break free. It's getting chaotic. The elf looks on in absolute shock, his eye reflecting the shimmering water magic. He can't believe what he's seeing. Alan stands tall as the water vortex starts to calm down. He's controlled the situation for now. The elf archers are staring at him in disbelief. They can't wrap their heads around a human apprentice being this strong. Alan stays focused, his eyes scanning for any more movement. He knows it's not over yet. From the rooftops, Shumil watches with a smirk. He's definitely found someone interesting. He lets out a little laugh, enjoying the show from his safe vantage point. Down below, Alan and the elves are still surrounded by the thick cloud of dust the monster kicked up. Alan drops to one knee, checking his grimoire again. He realizes these regular attacks aren't going to cut it. The Morlock is glowing with a strange energy, its body twitching as it gets more aggressive. Alan's eyes lock onto something hidden in the beast's forehead. He's found the weak point. Using his divine eyes, he spots the red ma th letter 1ea1ch gam sao vau de-stroke letter 1ea7 you know. That's the source of the madness. Green energy patterns flare in his eye as he locks onto the target. It's time for a surgical strike. The Morlock is glowing green as Alan prepares to hit it exactly where the evil presence is strongest. Alan charges forward, magic swirling around him like a shield. He's going for it. Suddenly, Shumil appears right behind him, casually resting a hand on his shoulder. "Not bad, kid," he says. Alan nearly jumps out of his skin. He didn't even hear the guy coming. Alan looks back, realizing this guy is in a completely different league than the other elves. Shumil just waves it off with a grin, asking if he startled the poor kid. Alan is already sensing his massive power. The other elf archers finally notice him and scream his name. They know exactly who he is. Shumil stands tall, looking every bit like the legendary guardian he's supposed to be. The archers run over, thanking him for showing up but demanding to know where he's been this whole time. Alan just stares at him, trying to figure out if this guy is an ally or a problem. One of the soldiers grabs Shumil by the shirt, furious that he was slacking off while they were fighting for their lives. Shumil just laughs it off, claiming he did his part. Alan watches the whole thing, feeling a bit awkward. The soldier is red in the face, screaming that people could have gotten hurt because of his laziness. Shumil doesn't seem to care at all. Shumil turns his back on the frustrated soldiers, completely ignoring their complaints about his attitude. Alan just watches the exchange, still trying to make sense of this guy. With a casual wave of his hand, Shumil asks the warriors if they even understand their own positions. He clearly doesn't feel like he owes them anything. One of the elf soldiers is livid, asking Shumil if he's actually fine with using a human child as a literal shield during the fight. Ignoring the soldiers entirely, Shumil steps closer to Alan and admits that the kid is actually pretty strong. Alan doesn't let his guard down for a second, but Shumil just smirks. He thinks things are finally starting to get interesting. In the background, the massive Morlock continues its rampage through the town, a dark shadow looming over the buildings. The elf warriors are completely stunned. They can't believe Shumil is acting this way in front of everyone. Alan's gaze turns sharp. He's not here for the drama, he's here to finish the job. The Morlock lets out another roar as a cloud of dark dust and debris swirls around its massive frame. It's far from defeated. Without warning, Shumil grabs Alan and leaps through the air, clearing a massive distance to escape an oncoming wave of dust. Alan can only let out a grunt of surprise. They land on a nearby roof, safely away from the immediate chaos. Shumil casually asks if the kid is doing all right. Shumil gives a half-hearted apology for the rough ride. While below them, the soldiers scream for everyone to close in on the target. Alan's divine eyes lock onto the creature's forehead. Seeing the red gem embedded there, he realizes that's exactly what's causing the monster's frenzy. From their high vantage point, they watch the Morlock thrashing in the street below. Shumil asks Alan if he thinks he can actually take it down. Shumil tells him he doesn't mind helping out, but he makes it clear that he wants something in return for his assistance. He tells Alan that once this mess is cleaned up, he's going to have to listen to what Shumil has to say. Alan gives him a steady, knowing look. Shumil's smile widens. He likes that Alan isn't easily intimidated. Alan looks back at the monster, telling Shumil that if they actually pull this off, he'll consider the offer. The beast is already clawing its way back up. Alan thinks this could be a great chance to get more information on phantom beasts. He's starting to feel more confident in his plan. He quickly places a Ma Th letter 1EA1CH into the magic circle on his grimoire. His timing couldn't be more perfect. The power surging from the book is so intense that even Shumil is caught off guard, letting out a surprised "huh" as the air begins to vibrate. A massive, violent vortex of water erupts from the grimoire, spinning with incredible force. Alan is pushing the book to its limits. Shumil's eyes go wide as he realizes the sheer scale of the magic. He challenges Alan to show him exactly what that grimoire is truly capable of. Standing in the center of the swirling storm, Alan raises his arm, fully prepared to unleash the most powerful spell he's ever cast. Alan's eyes glow with a golden light as he accepts the challenge. He tells Shumil he'll handle the attack, but he better have his back covered properly. Chap 14. Alan's magical power surges as he opens his golden grimoire, water spiraling around him in a massive vortex. He's finally got a weapon that's actually his, and the sheer volume of mana he's outputting is on a whole different level. The water crashes into the rampaging beast, slamming it against the town's buildings with enough force to drown out the noise of the market. The elf warriors can only watch from the side, completely stunned that a human kid is throwing around this much high-tier magic. Alan keeps the pressure on, pinning the creature down as the water mixes with the monster's own sand attacks. It's a messy struggle, but the beast is losing ground as the torrential flow starts to overwhelm its defenses. Alan grits his teeth and tells Shumil to give it another hit while he has it pinned. Another blast of water rips through the monster's core, tearing apart its physical form. The creature screams as the relentless pressure continues, its massive body being tossed around like a ragdoll in the surf. Shumil looks on with a smirk, calling Alan cold-blooded for the way he's systematically dismantling this thing. Alan ignores the banter and points out a specific spot where dark energy is throbbing, the creature's actual weak point. Shumil's interest is piqued. He hadn't noticed the core hiding under all that mess until Alan pointed it out. Alan shouts for him to target that exact area while he keeps the beast locked in place. Shumil readies an arrow, his expression turning serious as he locks onto the target through the chaos. With a flick of his wrist, the elf lets loose an enchanted shot that streaks toward the beast's center. The arrow connects perfectly, triggering a massive burst of light as it punctures the dark core. The beast collapses, its vitality drained in an instant as the crimson core is blasted right out of its chest. One of the elf guards watches in disbelief, asking if the threat is finally over. The monster's body starts to mutate, swelling with gross, pulsating red spheres as it begins to dissolve. Alan and Shumil stand over the remains, watching the biological mass break down into something much more sinister. The entire beast turns into a mountain of meat and liquid, sliding down the town walls in a disgusting heap. Dark fluid drains out of the creature's mouth, pooling onto the cobblestone streets below. Shumil immediately senses something is wrong and shouts for everyone to get back. The mass of red orbs is unstable, looking like it's about to explode or worse. Alan's eyes glow as he watches the reaction closely, sensing the familiar stench of Malik's work. A massive shockwave erupts from the center of the monster's remains, sending debris and mana flying everywhere. Alan quickly reacts, conjuring another swirl of water to contain the fallout before it can hurt the civilians nearby. He washes the remains away, leaving a clean, swirling sphere of water in the middle of the street. The elf warriors are just glad the nightmare is finally over, breathing a collective sigh of relief. Alan stands there panting, but his focus is entirely on the small object floating inside his magic. With the area secured, the townsfolk start moving back in to assess the damage. Alan reaches into the water and pulls out the source of the beast's transformation. It's a crimson core, and the way it feels in his hand makes his skin crawl. This is exactly like the experiments Malik used to run on him and the other slaves back in the lab. Shumil suddenly grabs Alan from behind, laughing about how much power the kid was hiding. Alan's a bit annoyed at the sudden lack of personal space, but he's got more important things on his mind. Shumil remembers that Alan had a request earlier and asks if it was about the Elven territories. Alan confirms it. He needs to know everything about the Phantom Beast King residing there. He starts firing off questions about the king's appearance and abilities, completely catching Shumil off guard. Shumil laughs at the kid's enthusiasm, wondering if scent tracking and interrogation are just hobbies for humans these days. He takes a good look at Alan, noticing the intensity in his eyes that goes far beyond his age. He gives Alan a rough pat on the head, acknowledging that this kid might actually have what it takes to survive in their lands. Shumil notices something interesting. Alan carries the scent of a divine beast. He asks if one of them actually spoke to him, but Alan's just left scratching his head. Seeing the kid's potential, the elf decides to drop a little inside info. He starts explaining the hierarchy of the Elven territories and the deity they revere. The two of them take a break on the grass, Shumil getting a bit more comfortable than Alan would like. The deity is known as the Sage Monarch, a three-eyed bird that can interpret the winds of history. He's a legend that possesses all the knowledge of the land, from the distant past to the future. Shumil whispers that the bird might be eavesdropping right now, which naturally freaks Alan out. Fearing a lecture from the higher-ups, the elf warrior decides to wrap things up. He confirms that the Seven-Star King knows every secret in the world, but that's all he can share for now. If Alan wants to meet the guy, he'll have to wait for the festival held once every 50 years and beat all the Guardians. Conveniently, the next one is only 2 years away, and Shumil thinks the timing is perfect. Alan just gives a confident little smirk. He's not exactly the type of guy who likes waiting around for years. He suggests they just settle things right now and let him through to the king. Shumil is impressed by the brat's confidence, clearly finding him more fascinating by the minute. But he shuts him down, explaining that beating just one guardian won't get him anywhere. To get an audience, you have to face every single one of them in order. He tells Alan to spend the next 2 years getting stronger so he doesn't embarrass himself. Because when that day comes, Shumil won't be holding anything back. Alan takes the challenge in stride, though he's a bit skeptical about just calling it a spar. Shumil looks back with a grin, clearly looking forward to their next meeting. Alan warns him to take it seriously, because next time there won't be any doubt about who wins. Their conversation is interrupted when Alan's name is called out from behind. It's Alan's master, Klaus, and his sudden appearance catches both of them by surprise. Alan walks over to meet the tower master, who's already busy analyzing the situation. Klaus takes one look at the Crimson Core and notes it's identical to the one that old creep Malik had. He asks if he can take the core back to the tower for a more thorough investigation. Shumil's jaw drops when he realizes who he's looking at, practically tackling the old man. Klaus is just as shocked to find out that the energetic elf is actually one of the legendary guardians. Shumil laughs at how much his old rival has aged, while Klaus just wants him to show some respect for his elders. Alan's left standing there wondering how on earth these two even know each other. It turns out Klaus was actually a participant in the previous festival 50 years ago. A quick flashback shows a younger Klaus getting absolutely wrecked by Lord Shumil. Shumil asks if the little squirt is Klaus's student, and the old man proudly confirms it. The elf warrior seems satisfied with that answer, having seen Alan's power firsthand. Klaus is already dreading the headache that usually comes with dealing with the elven folk. Without another word, Shumil suddenly takes off into the sky, leaving Alan blinking in confusion. Alan tries to call him back, but the guy is already miles away. He shouts one last invitation for Alan to come, find him in the elven territories in 2 years. Alan's frustrated because he still has a mountain of questions he never got to ask. Klaus asks if he's really planning on going to the celebration, and Alan's answer is an immediate yes. Klaus warns him that the Guardians possess strength far beyond his current level. While the old master is no longer in a position to take on the festival himself, he believes Alan just might have the potential to reach their heights. The tower master watches his student, seeing a fire in the boy's eyes that reminds him of his own youth. Alan simply agrees, his mind already set on the path ahead. The legendary 7-star monarch, who takes the shape of a majestic eagle, watches over the lands from high above. Alan finds himself eager to finally encounter this divine being and prove his worth. Several days pass at the Magic Tower's central research facility, where the quiet of the lab hides the growing storm. Tower Master Klaus looks at the glowing red core under glass. It's identical to the samples they found in Malik's lab. He finds it hard to believe the wood folk would have something like this, given they worship divine beasts. If they didn't possess it themselves, Klaus reasons that someone else must have planted it there. He turns to Alan with a grim expression. The path forward is going to be even rougher than they anticipated. A sudden ringtone cuts through the silence. A magical phone on the desk starts glowing with a purple light. Klaus picks up the receiver and asks what the emergency is. The report is bad. A massive legion of demons is closing in on the southern capital. Later, Alan focuses on his work, carefully manipulating a glowing blue stone with both hands. He lets out a sigh of relief. He finally succeeded in processing it. He holds up the mana stone from the divine beast, letting it catch the light. Alan's curious what kind of ancient power is actually locked inside this thing. Elias walks in and asks to have a look as well. Alan ignores him and gets ready to activate it. Elias starts to sweat. Elias shouts for him to wait. They have no idea what's in there, and triggering it inside a room is a terrible idea. Alan doesn't listen. He places the stone right onto the pages of his open grimoire. The magic circles on the page begin to glow, syncing up with the blue stone in the center. A massive pillar of blue light erupts from the book, drowning out everything else in the room. Alan stares into the light, his eyes reflecting the intense magical energy. Then the light just fizzles out. Alan blinks, staring down at the stone in confusion. Instead of a powerful spell, only a few small blue bubbles float harmlessly around his head. Elias is just as baffled. He wonders why it isn't working as intended. Alan can still feel a staggering amount of energy inside, but it's not going anywhere. It's like the power is right in front of him, but it keeps eluding his grasp. He clenches his fist. He's just unable to take full control of the energy. Klaus explains that there's a specific technique to mastering something this complex. Having raw energy isn't enough. It requires a lot more skill to actually manifest that potential. Alan realizes he'll just have to keep practicing. Alan remembers that even the Phantom Beast warned him this wouldn't be easy to manage. He had been so excited to find out what kind of magic it was, but Klaus says there are more pressing matters. The Demon Legion is advancing fast. Klaus is sending a relief force, and Elias is part of it. Klaus is taking the field himself, but he tells Alan that he is required to remain behind for this mission. Alan is shocked and wants to know why he's being excluded. Klaus admits he knows Alan is capable, but there's something else weighing on his mind. Alan is left wondering what has the Tower Master so on edge. The following morning arrives. Alan walks down the tower stairs with his bag. He overhears a courier reporting that the reinforcements have finally made it to the southern city. He stops and thinks, maybe he should have just insisted on going to the front lines regardless of orders. Alan heads to the desk to report in, where a blonde girl is already talking to the staff. She turns around and calls out his name. Alan sighs. He's always found her a bit difficult to deal with. She asks if he's managed to adjust to life at the tower. Alan gives a short, polite answer. Suddenly, a harsh, screeching sound echoes through the hall, making everyone stop. A massive red orb pulses with a high threat alert. A prisoner has escaped. All mages are ordered to secure areas immediately. Alan and the girl look on as people start running. He can't believe someone actually broke out. A frantic guard yells for someone to bring the Tower Master back immediately. The blonde girl tries to keep people calm, though everyone is wondering exactly who broke out. The news is grim. The entire security detail in the dungeon has been wiped out. They need to establish contact with Tower Master Klaus right away as panic starts to spread. A mage apologizes to Alan for the chaos unfolding around them. He tells Alan to follow the evacuation orders and get to safety with the others. People are already rushing through the halls, trying to find an exit. Alan stops, realizing that if the guards were killed, the culprit might still be lurking inside. Instead of fleeing, he decides to investigate on his own. He sprints through the dark corridors, heading toward the heart of the tower. He reaches a massive library and pushes the heavy doors open. Inside, a lone figure is standing in a shaft of light amidst the bookshelves. Alan calls out, demanding to know what they're doing there. He asks what business they have in a restricted area like this. The figure turns, revealing the gaunt, skeletal face of an old man with long white hair. Alan immediately summons his grimoire, sensing a sinister aura from the stranger. The old man recognizes him, calling Alan the disgusting slave who ruined his plans. This is Malik Lanberic, and he's clearly lost his mind. Alan can tell there's something deeply wrong with him as he starts ranting about the world. Malik claims he's going to restore everything to its true form. He rambles about being the chosen one while staring at Alan with crazed eyes. Alan asks what kind of nonsense he's talking about, but Malik is focused on his demonstration. He pulls out a dark, pulsating orb and tells Alan he should consider himself lucky to witness this. Malik intends to eliminate every person in the entire nation. He says he will ascend to the pinnacle of existence. Malik declares that he will take his place as the new 7-star king. Without another word, he opens his mouth and swallows the dark orb whole. A violent surge of energy explodes from him, shattering the room around them. Black, viscous energy wraps around Malik as he begins a grotesque transformation. The force of the change punches a massive hole straight through the tower's stone wall. Alan is thrown back by the sheer pressure of the dark mana. He hits the floor hard, sliding across the room while clutching his book. He struggles to his feet, panting as dust and debris settle around him. Crazed laughter echoes back through the gap in the wall. Alan stares at the name in the reports. Malik, his former tormentor, has returned. Outside, Malik has transformed into a monstrous, giant-like demon with glowing red eyes. The monster leaps from the tower, descending toward the unsuspecting city below. Alan rushes to the edge of the broken wall, gripping the jagged stone as he watches the demon fall. He asks himself if he really thought Malik would just be allowed to escape. The emergency broadcast repeats its alert, authorizing mages to use their own judgment. A magical relay pendant glows as it issues a new objective: neutralize the demon forces in the capital. Alan prepares his magic, determined to hold the capital no matter the price. Alan lands on the grass outside the tower, wondering what the hell is going on in the city. He sprints across the courtyard, heading straight toward the heart of the chaos. In the streets, demons are already terrorizing the citizens. One man pleads for his life as a monster looms over him. Alan's magic strikes down the monsters instantly, skewering them before they can land a blow. A rescued civilian yells out his thanks as Alan continues his charge into the fray. Alan doesn't stop, his eyes fixed on the source of the screams. The entire plaza is a war zone. People are running for their lives as demons drop from the sky. Alan's grimoire pulses with light as he prepares to unleash another powerful spell. His magic tears through the swarm, clearing a path through the demon ranks. He looks completely focused, his mana radiating from him like a physical force. His eyes glow with a cold, piercing light as he pushes his magic to the limit. He can feel the energy coursing through his veins as he stares down the carnage. Standing on the central fountain, the transformed Malik mocks the humans, claiming taking them down is effortless. He orders his demonic minions to make sure not a single person escapes the square alive. A desperate man clutches a child and runs as fast as he can, trying to find safety. Suddenly, the entire square erupts in a massive pillar of flame. Through the fire and smoke, Alan steps forward, his grimoire still open and glowing. He tells Malik to look closely and not misunderstand the situation they're in. Malik looks down with a sneer, asking if Alan really thinks he can stand against him. Alan stares back with narrowed eyes, declaring that he is the one Malik is fighting now. The two of them face off in the middle of the burning plaza, the air thick with killing intent. Inside Alan's book, a mysterious blue jewel begins to glow with an intense, otherworldly light. A massive blast of magic clears the sky, scattering the demon minions in every direction. Alan stands his ground as a fresh wave of monsters dives toward him from above. He raises his hand, and a torrent of fire incinerates the beasts before they can reach the ground. Malik watches the display from atop a fountain, his expression one of pure boredom. The demon leader laughs, telling the kid he'll give him a painless death if he just begs for it. Alan doesn't flinch, reminding the monster that he's already lost to him once before. Malik scoffs at the brat's attitude and prepares to show him real power. A massive energy beam narrowly misses Alan, vaporizing a chunk of the building behind him. Several high-ranking mages from the tower arrive to reinforce the perimeter. They immediately recognize the humanoid demon as Malik, the escaped prisoner. Malik hovers in the air, several jagged, thorny vines erupting from his back. The lead mage orders his squad to prepare a combined magical volley to end this quickly. He shoves Alan aside, telling the apprentice to stay out of the way of the real fighters. Malik just smirks at them, calling the group a bunch of trash. Alan notices a glowing red core pulsating deep within the demon's chest. He reaches for another jewel, prepping his grimoire for a different kind of attack. Malik ignores the threats, his thorny vines continuing to grow and twist around him. The mages unleash their simultaneous spells, creating a multicolored explosion of energy. The blast center is a chaotic mess of fire and lightning as it slams into the demon. Alan shields his eyes, watching for any sign of movement from within the smoke. He remains eerily calm, while the other mages celebrate their apparent direct hit. The smoke clears to reveal Malik's body being torn apart, but the vines are already pulling him back together. The demon's face twists into a horrific grin as Alan watches the wounds seal up in seconds. A sudden shockwave from Malik sends the tower mages flying across the courtyard. His eyes glow with a murderous light, completely unharmed by the previous barrage. Alan realizes that standard magic isn't going to be enough to put this thing down. A dark hand reaches out to reclaim a discarded jewel lying in the rubble. Alan's eyes narrow as he notices the ice shards from his earlier attack still haven't melted. Malik pulls several ice shards from his shoulder, but the frost seems to be slowing down his healing process. He looks down and realizes he was wrong about needing his current form. He picks up a glowing mana stone, declaring he never needed to cling to his old power. Holding the jewel aloft, he prepares to evolve into something even more dangerous. With a single squeeze, he crushes the jewel, forcing its raw power directly into his system. Alan's expression turns to one of pure shock as the demon's aura begins to skyrocket. The foreign energy courses through Malik, making his skin ripple and glow. He ascends even higher on a massive spiral of thorns, towering over the entire city. Red lightning arcs between his fingers as he starts chanting a high-level spell. A massive pillar of dark energy shoots up, piercing the clouds and darkening the sky. Malik boasts that once the city is gone, he'll move on to slaughter every phantom beast in the kingdom. Giant fireballs begin forming in the atmosphere, ready to rain down destruction. The entire capital is cast in a hellish orange glow as the first meteors start to fall. The defeated mages can only watch in despair, certain that their kingdom is about to fall. Alan retorts that there's no way he's letting Malik win. He preps his next move, calling the demon out for being total scum. With his grimoire open, Alan promises to be the one to end this fight for good. Malik laughs at the threat, mocking Alan for thinking he even stands a chance. Alan carefully slots a blue jewel into the center of his ancient book. He's looking ahead past this fight toward the phantom beasts and his ultimate goal. A sudden strike from Malik's vine misses its mark as Alan stays focused on his spell. The demon taunts him, asking if he's already hit his limit. Alan can feel the mana starting to surge within him like a tidal wave. The power begins to spiral out, turning the air around him into a vortex of blue energy. Glowing runes appear on the pages of his grimoire, resonating with the jewel. He channels everything he's got, pushing himself further than ever before. Malik lunges in for the kill, but Alan's aura is already too strong to penetrate. The boy stands his ground, his eyes fixed on the demon as the ritual reaches its peak. A blinding flash of light erupts, pushing the thorny vines back into the darkness. From the center of the mana storm, a spectral wolf with a crescent moon symbol appears. Alan looks at the beast, realizing it's not an enemy, but a source of power he can use. The grimoire's circles lock into place, humming with a frequency that vibrates the ground. Alan is completely swallowed by the azure light, his silhouette glowing white. He sees the jewel's essence deep in his mind, reaching out to grasp its true power. The mana feels physical as it flows around him, thick and heavy. He knows this is a dangerous gamble, but he refuses to let the power overwhelm him. With a determined shout, Alan clenches his fist, declaring he will master this magic. The final seal on the grimoire breaks, and the summoning circle on the ground ignites. A confident smile spreads across Alan's face as he feels the bond with the beast solidify. Nearby mages can only watch in shock, unable to believe the amount of mana being released. Alan declares that he's taking his destiny into his own hands. A gargantuan spectral whale, made of shimmering ice and water, bursts forth from the light. The apprentices and soldiers nearby are frozen in place, awestruck by the sheer size of the creature. The shadow of the massive phantom beast falls over the entire courtyard, silencing the battle. The mages can barely find the words to describe the monster Alan has summoned. A blonde apprentice watches with tears in her eyes, completely overwhelmed by the beauty of the magic. The spectral whale glides through the air above the city like it's swimming through the ocean. Malik is reduced to a tiny speck in the creature's shadow, his vines looking like mere toys. The demon leader is paralyzed with fear, unable to comprehend the level of magic he's seeing. Alan feels the crushing weight of the spell, knowing he has to maintain perfect control. He feels like he might be flattened by the pressure, but he pushes back with everything he has. The light from the summoning circle intensifies, but Alan remains steady. He can feel the whale's massive consciousness, accepting him as its master. The grimoire pulses with energy, and Alan can tell the book is guiding his every move. Malik screams in desperation, trying to slash at Alan with his thorny vines. The whale's energy slams directly into the demon, shattering all his attacks in the blink of an eye. Alan declares the release of his magic, his eyes cold and focused as the phantom beast looms behind him. The spectral whale unleashes a devastating wave of energy, blasting through Malik's thorny defenses. Reeling from the impact, Malik clutches his head in agony, unable to comprehend the source of such overwhelming power. With his target locked, Alan prepares the final stage of his assault, his hand glowing with concentrated mana. A pillar of blue light erupts into the sky, casting a brilliant glow over the entire kingdom as the king watches in awe. Across the capital, the magic manifests as crystalline stars, striking down the demon minions and sparing the terrified citizens. The colossal phantom beast swims through the air, its body inscribed with ancient, shimmering runes. Alan addresses the defeated noble, promising to show him the true weight of the ancient power he so foolishly discarded. Malik stares up in horror, his arrogance replaced by a primal fear as he realizes he is completely outmatched. Large magical arrays continue to expand through the streets, purging the city of the demonic infestation. The sheer scale of the ancient magic is revealed, dwarfing anything the modern mages have ever witnessed. In a fit of desperate rage, Malik screams at Alan, still refusing to accept that a former slave could possess such strength. Alan begins the final incantation, his voice steady and resonant as he channels the last of his mana. A crystalline spike of ice forms in his hand as he calls forth the Garden of Ice Flowers. Massive glaciers erupt from the earth, surrounding Malik and trapping him within a forest of frozen death. The spectral whale circles the magnificent ice formation, its task nearly complete. The remaining demons are instantly flash-frozen, their reign of terror brought to a sudden icy halt. Malik struggles against his frozen prison, his vines lashing out in a futile attempt to shatter the enchanted ice. Blood drips from the demon's eyes as he realizes his strength is failing, his mind racing for a way to escape. Alan stands before the massive crystal, his expression unyielding as he tells Malik that this is where his journey ends. With a single, decisive motion, Alan clenches his fist, triggering the final collapse of the spell. The ice crystal shatters with a thunderous roar, and Malik vanishes into the light with a final, desperate curse. The phantom beast lowers its head, its presence fading as the mana that summoned it begins to dissipate. Alan looks up at the whale one last time, offering a quiet word of thanks for its assistance. Magical particles drift down like snow over the city as the heavy clouds finally begin to break. A beautiful rainbow arches over the capital, signaling the end of the long night and the survival of the kingdom. On the palace walls, the king and tower master Klaus stand in silence, grappling with the magnitude of what they just witnessed. Alan gazes at the horizon, his eyes reflecting the deep, ancient knowledge he has just accessed. He realizes that this is only the beginning of his journey into the secrets of the phantom beasts. Miles away, a mysterious hooded figure watches the distant city, nodding Malik's failure with cold indifference. Holding a glowing red artifact, the stranger remarks that they have gathered sufficient data on the demonization process. He maneuvers through the trees with unnatural grace, his mind already set on the next stage of their sinister plan. Looking at a reflection of Alan in his crystal, the figure decides to make the boy a key player in the coming conflict. Everything is proceeding exactly as their master intended, despite Malik's clumsy defeat. The Dark Rider turns his horse and disappears into the forest, leaving behind a chilling promise of a restored world. In the shadows, a pair of glowing red eyes flicker, the first sign of the 8th star pillar awakening. Everyone in the capital is surrounding Alan, treating him like a total hero for stopping that demon attack. It's all a bit much for the kid, though. The apprentice Grimoire smith just wants some breathing room. News of what he did spreads through the entire kingdom in an instant. He walks through the streets with some blue ice flowers, while the citizens look on in total awe. Back at the tower, Alan's blonde companion, Lucas, comes running in at full speed. He bursts into the library, shouting for the boy to see if he's actually in there. He skids to a halt just as a book falls off a high shelf. He finds himself staring at a massive mountain of books piled up in the middle of the room. Alan is fast asleep right in the middle of the mess, totally wiped out from all his research. Lucas softens his look, realizing just how hard the kid has been pushing himself. Even while he's out cold, the boy is still mumbling about mana stones. Meanwhile, the tower master, Klaus, stands before the king in a grand chamber filled with water. The king is dead set on rewarding the boy with a noble title and his own territory. He holds a small crystalline whale, noting how the common folk are already worshipping Alan's magic. To the public, the spectral whale Alan summoned has become a symbol of a guardian deity. It's not just the commoners. The king says even the stubborn aristocrats are impressed. Wealthy nobles are already lining up to throw donations at the magic tower to get on his good side. To the king, it's only natural to reward the child who saved the entire country. Klaus sees right through the move, knowing the king just wants to chain Alan's future to the throne. He politely shuts it down, telling him his apprentice is way too young for that kind of burden. The king takes the rejection surprisingly well and decides not to push it. He even promises not to put the boy under any kind of surveillance or guards. But he leaves Klaus with one order: make sure the boy is raised to be the kingdom's shield. Klaus bows, but internally, he's thinking about how foolish the king really is. He knows Alan craves freedom too much to ever be tied down by a title like that. He looks out over the city, determined to let the boy choose his own path. Back at the tower, Alan's eyes are practically sparkling with excitement. He's found a room overflowing with expensive gifts and rare jewels sent by the nobles. He starts happily sorting through his new treasure trove while the adults watch. Klaus notes that while the nobles want a connection, Alan doesn't care about the politics at all. The boy suddenly calls out to Lucas, holding up a glowing stone. He's found a rutile jewel from the forest folk's land, perfect for his magic experiments. He shows it off, totally impressed by how high the purity is. Alan asks if he can keep all the gifts to try them out, and Klaus gives him the thumbs up. They dive into the theory of how different attribute jewels work together. Lucas watches as Alan geeks out, thinking the kid is easily the most skilled mage in the country. Klaus keeps a close eye on them, worrying that Alan won't be ready for the ritual at this rate. He decides to kick things up a notch and tells them to head to the training grounds. He plans to teach Alan the complex art of combining different jewels. The three of them arrive at the yard, ready to start the next phase of training. The area is packed with other mages showing off their skills in a massive display of power. The students are stunned to see the legendary tower master himself showing up at the grounds. The other students are losing their minds, seeing the famous tower master hanging out with Lucas and some new kid. They recognize him instantly. It's the boy who supposedly saved the capital with that massive ice whale. Alan doesn't pay them any mind and gets his grimoire ready. Klaus takes center stage, ready to start the real lesson. He explains that derivative jewels are best understood by watching them in action. He breaks it down into 4 categories: sensory, visual, material, and formless. Today's special is the material type, which is basically about giving magic a physical presence. By giving form to an elemental jewel, you can seriously crank up its destructive power. He starts by channeling pure magic through an elemental jewel to show the baseline. Next, he preps a material-type jewel to add into the mix. The second he combines them, the energy starts to shift. The magic takes on a sharp, solid shape, way more dangerous than just raw mana. It's like turning a spray of water into a solid spear. He lets it rip, sending a flurry of water projectiles flying. They slam into the target pillars with enough force to shatter stone. Klaus mentions that even in this tower, there are barely 10 mages who can pull off a combo like that. He looks at Alan, knowing the kid's talent for ancient magic is off the charts. He figures with a year of hard training, Alan might be able to manage it. The other students think he's being way too optimistic, since even high-level mages struggle for years with this. Lucas looks a bit worried, asking Alan if he thinks he can handle it. Alan's eyes start to sparkle as he gives a confident yeah. He steps up to the plate, ready to see what he can do. He places his hand over the jewels, and the grimoire starts glowing with intense energy. He feels it immediately, the true power of form. He starts applying the mental blueprint to his water magic. Klaus and Lucas watch closely, wondering what kind of shape he's going to produce. Klaus is already mentally prepping a "don't worry if you fail" speech. But Alan is seeing something deeper than just a simple shape. His vision starts to swim with images of leaves and flowing water. Suddenly, a whole forest starts to manifest in his mind's eye. His divine eyes are fully active now, piercing through the jewel's core. Klaus and Lucas can only watch in total shock as the magic starts to spiral out of control. The students in the background are absolutely floored. Instead of a simple projectile, a gargantuan forest made of ice begins to grow right in the middle of the yard. Klaus recognizes the scenery instantly. It's a spring from the land of the forest folk. He realizes the jewel must have originated from that exact territory. This is way beyond just giving magic a shape. He wonders if Alan actually pulled the entire landscape memory right out of the stone itself. Alan is completely immersed in the vision of the frozen woods. He suddenly snaps back to reality, gasping for breath. Klaus calls out his name as Alan stands there, totally spent. The training ground is now home to a massive, intricate forest of ice that towers over everyone. Alan stands there, completely speechless at the sheer scale of the magic he just conjured. The massive water constructs begin to dissipate, leaving everyone in the courtyard stunned. He's drenched in sweat and breathing hard, his body feeling the heavy toll of such a high-level spell. Klaus approaches him, wearing a look of genuine surprise and admiration for his progress. Still catching his breath, Alan asks the master what exactly happened during the manifestation. Klaus explains that instead of just following the jewel's shape, Alan tapped into the deep memories embedded within the stone itself. He notes that it's all thanks to those eyes of his, which have an extraordinary affinity for ancient magic. Alan's eyes shimmer with an otherworldly light, a power he's only beginning to truly understand. But the master doesn't sugarcoat it, reminding Alan that he's still a novice who lacks the foundation for true mastery. Alan looks down, the weight of the master's words hitting home as he realizes how far he still has to go. He knows Klaus is right. He has so many techniques to learn and ancient secrets to uncover. The tower master glances at his own grimoire, perhaps contemplating the path ahead for his gifted student. Alan looks at the jewel in his hand, thinking about the mysterious power it holds. His mind drifts back to the spirit wolf that saved his life once before, prompting him to dig deeper. He remembers spending hours in the library, desperately searching for answers about that encounter. He read about phantoms, rare occurrences where mana takes the form of living creatures like tigers or wolves. But he can't help but feel that the wolf was something more than just a mindless phantom. Regardless, he's certain that their paths will cross again when the time is right. He refocuses on the present, knowing he only has 2 years before the critical forest folk ritual. Klaus warns him that he'll need to train like his life depends on it if he hopes to face the forest folk guardians. Stretching out his sore muscles, Alan confidently declares that 2 years is more than enough time. He's determined to push past his limits and become stronger than anyone ever expected. A faint, confident smirk plays on his lips as he envisions his future victory. Both Klaus and Lucas can see the fire in his eyes, knowing the boy's resolve is unshakable. His ultimate goal is set: defeat the Guardians and finally meet the legendary 7-star king. The pendant around his neck glows with a soft, promising light, symbolizing the start of his path. The training begins in earnest, with Lucas often losing his temper as Alan's magic experiments go a bit too far. It's a montage of hard work, from studying artifacts with the woodfolk craftsmen to causing accidental property damage. Alan's control over different elements, especially wind magic, reaches a whole new level of refinement. A caption marks the end of an era. 2 years have passed, and Alan is finally ready. At the tower's reception desk, he confirms the final details for his long-awaited departure. The staff wish him luck as he prepares to leave the safety of the tower. He walks through the massive gates, reflecting on how quickly the last 2 years have gone by. Looking more mature and self-assured, he smiles at the horizon, ready for the trials ahead. With the majestic landscape stretching out before him, the real journey of the divine-eyed mage finally begins. A worker asks Alan if he's really leaving with so little gear, but he's confident he's got all the essentials. It's been 2 years at the tower, and as he heads out, Lucas waves one last goodbye from the window. The tower master, Klaus, gives him a final nod, acknowledging all the hard work he put in. For Alan, this is where the real adventure finally kicks off. Lucas walks him to the gate, and Alan keeps it brief with a simple "yeah" as they move out. Every step forward feels like a new beginning. He pauses for a second to look back at the place he's called home for so long. By the main gate, a few students are busy whispering about Lady Kyra, the tower's star representative. Kyra isn't one for the high society talk, though. To her, a name is just a name. Alan notices her watching him, knowing she's one of the few who can actually keep up with his pace. She catches the students gossiping and shuts them down with a single, icy glare. But that cold look vanishes the moment she sees Alan, replaced by a warm, genuine smile. She walks up and asks him how it feels to finally be moving on. He thinks it's cool how she treats him like a normal guy, despite her noble status. He remembers all the times she's been there to welcome him back after a tough mission. Kyra gets serious for a second, asking if he's sure about going solo with all the demon activity lately. She even reaches out to stop him, clearly not ready to see him go just yet. She's determined to have him join her party for the journey. She gestures to her personal guard knights, making sure he knows he'd have all the backup he needs. She offers her hand, practically begging him to reconsider and travel with her. Alan politely turns her down, and the nearby students immediately start talking trash about his attitude. They're convinced he's gotten a big head just because he hit intermediate rank in record time. The group suddenly turns pale when they feel a terrifying pressure from behind. Kyra isn't letting anyone disrespect him, looming over them with a look that spells trouble. Her eyes glow with a pinkish fury as she tells them to know their place. They're not even in the same league as her or Alan. The next morning, it's finally time for the official send-off with Klaus and Lucas. Even the tower's receptionist comes out to say her goodbyes to the talented student. Klaus hands him the map they promised, along with a list of tower-friendly spots along the road. When Alan actually says thanks while taking the map, the Master and Lucas are totally stunned. They're amazed at how much he's matured, hitting intermediate rank faster than even a genius like Lucas. The receptionist still has her doubts, asking if he's really okay heading out into demon territory alone. She suggests he take a night escort for safety, but Alan has made up his mind. He tells her it's fine and starts walking toward the tree line. He's dead set on traveling freely without anyone holding him back. He gives them one last smirk over his shoulder. His divine eye glints with a strange light, sensing the magic in the air. The three of them stand together, watching their best student walk toward his destiny. Klaus tells him he'll be right here at the tower, waiting for the good news. Alan gives a confident yeah as he steps out. He waves goodbye one last time, the magic tower looming grandly in the distance. His focus is already on the forest land's legendary jewel, and the phantom beast he's bound to find. High up on a balcony, Kyra watches him go, keeping her eyes on him until he's just a speck on the horizon. Reporting directly to her father, Kyra confirms that Alan has finally left the magic tower. Even knowing he's traveling solo, she's following her orders to keep a close watch on his progress. The plan is set. They'll continue monitoring him as he makes his way toward the forest land. Preparations on the other side are already in motion, and the voice on the other end gives the go-ahead. She's told to coordinate with their allies on site and act according to the plan. With a chilling smile, she wishes for the guidance of the 8th star pillar to be with him. The world is in chaos right now, ever since Malik Lanberic escaped and launched his attack on the capital. Demon attacks have ramped up all over the Yugno continent, leaving common folks in constant fear. Nations have responded by beefing up their border defenses to handle the surge. Every kingdom is feeling the pressure as these attacks become more frequent and coordinated. Tensions are at an all-time high as people deal with these new, human-related threats. Alan makes use of a local transport, hitching a ride on a winged mount to cover more ground. The journey takes him through bustling towns and past heavily guarded gates. He finally reaches the entrance to the forest land, where security is tighter than anything he's seen so far. The checkpoint is a hive of activity, with guards meticulously checking every traveler. Alan notes just how strict the entry requirements are for this place. He's surprised they're even holding a festival, while demons are terrorizing the continent. The elf at the desk double-checks the list, confirming that Alan is indeed one of the registered festival participants. With his identity verified, the guard clears him to pass through the final gate. As he steps into the woods, Alan is immediately struck by the sheer beauty of the forest. The air itself feels different here, filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers. Even the local wildlife seems more vibrant and full of life. He recalls the map, confirming he's now officially in the White Tribe's territory. He gets the feeling someone is watching him from the shadows, his senses instantly going on high alert. Before he can react, a volley of projectiles comes screaming toward him. Alan doesn't skip a beat, manifesting a water barrier to catch the incoming fire. He spots the culprit, an arrow wrapped in swirling wind magic. His divine eyes trace the magic threads right back to an archer hidden high in the trees. Alan realizes this isn't a lethal strike, but rather some kind of test or greeting. Frustrated by the sudden ambush, he decides he's had enough of the games. He fires back a piercing water spell, aimed precisely at the hidden attacker's location. The spell cuts through the foliage with incredible speed. A boisterous blonde elf leaps from the trees, laughing as he easily dodges the retaliation. The White Tribe warrior is genuinely impressed by Alan's reaction speed and reflexes. He drops down and gives Alan a hearty welcome to the forest festival. Alan is still a bit annoyed, but the warrior is already moving on, eager to get things started. The massive elf leads him deeper into the forest, toward the main venue. They arrive at a grand plaza filled with elves from various tribes, all gathered for the upcoming trials. The warrior points out a colossal tree in the distance, towering over everything else in the forest. He explains that it's the altar where the elven king is worshipped, the very heart of their culture. Alan stares up at the massive tree, feeling the ancient, overwhelming power radiating from it. The sacred tree is truly a sight to behold, draped in glowing lights and ancient ornaments. The White Tribe warrior asks Alan if he finds the altar beautiful, explaining its sacred purpose. He calls it the vessel of the king, noting that it is also known as the sacred tree. Alan's divine eyes see the tree sparkling with an intense, magical radiance. The warrior is surprised that a human can perceive the sparkle, something rare for outsiders. He explains that the different tribes of the forest have specific roles to fulfill. The White Tribe's duty is the protection of the sacred tree and the seven-star king. He adds that they are the central tribe responsible for managing the entire festival. Alan recalls his master's words, comparing the White Tribe's status to that of royal knights. Alan notices a presence looking down from high above the plaza. An elder figure overlooks the crowd, speaking of the growing threat from demons. The old chief priest thanks everyone for gathering at this critical time. The warrior points him out to Alan, identifying him as their tribe's highest spiritual leader. The priest declares the start of the trial of blessing to pray for the king's prosperity. He calls for the representative of the challengers to begin the opening ceremony. The representative is introduced as the butterfly Grimoire mage, much to Alan's curiosity. A young elf girl descends into the center of the arena, her blonde hair billowing in the wind magic. With a joyful smile, Sheila announces the official beginning of the trial of blessing. She opens her pink grimoire, and a complex magic circle manifests in the air above it. She raises her hand, guiding the swirling energy as it begins to take shape. Her magic flows outward, filling the plaza with a gentle, glowing aura. A massive magic circle covers the ground, causing the very plants to react to her power. Beautiful cherry blossom trees burst into full bloom in a matter of seconds across the forest. The spectators are left speechless by the sudden and magnificent transformation of the scenery. Alan watches the falling petals, his eyes tracking the flow of the mana. He realizes the spell is a sophisticated combination of plant-based and illusion magic. He acknowledges Sheila's talent for creating such elaborate and visually stunning effects. The warrior explains that Sheila is the most promising grimoire mage of the Green Tribe. The priest commends her performance and tells her she may step back now that the blessing is done. The warrior notes that while they have mages, many forest people prefer to fight as hunters. He describes the use of magic weapons, which are infused with stones to provide elemental power. Unlike grimoires, these weapons are gaining popularity because anyone with a bit of talent can use them. Alan reflects on the high level of natural aptitude found among the forest tribes. The warrior mentions the old prejudices Sheila faced, as some thought women should only work the fields. She rose above those expectations, proving her strength in a culture dominated by hunters. Alan remains focused on Sheila, recognizing her as a significant presence in the festival. Sheila walks past another challenger, her smile contrasting with the man's stern expression. The priest announces that the first trial will commence tonight at the Northern Spring. Only those who pass the first trial will be allowed to challenge the guardians in the second. The warrior tells Alan that the second trial is notoriously difficult and even deadly. The priest reveals that no challenger has successfully cleared the second trial in over 2 centuries. The weight of the challenge hangs heavy over the participants as they consider the priest's words. The priest concludes by expressing his hope that a true hero will finally appear to meet the king. Alan stands amidst a flurry of golden leaves, his purple eyes reflecting his focus on the challenges ahead. He catches a glimpse of Kyra and a mysterious robed figure in the distance, sensing their eyes on him. Kyra walks past the hooded challenger, her red hair catching the light as she makes her way through the sacred area. The northern spring comes alive at night, its waters sparkling with a magical intensity that illuminates the surrounding ruins. Alan stares into the pool, his divine eyes picking up the distinct glow of magic stones buried deep beneath the surface. A voice breaks his concentration, reminding him to stay sharp and not lose his footing before the trial officially starts. The White Tribe warrior grabs Alan by the back of his coat, teasing him about the consequences of an accidental fall. Alan dangles in the air, his frustration mounting as he tries to understand if the stones are the true objective. The warrior leans in, his expression knowing, and whispers that the trial's secret is far more intriguing than it appears. The priest looks out over the crowd of challengers, ready to deliver the instructions for the first phase of the festival. He announces that each person must select a stone containing ancient magic and prove themselves worthy to the king. With a calm smile, the priest sets a 1-day time limit and offers his blessings for their success in the trial. The warrior chuckles, suggesting that while some might think they can just pick any stone, the reality is much more complex. Alan is caught off guard by the warrior's sudden change in tone, his intuition warning him of an impending surprise. The warrior's playful grin widens as he confirms that a true trial would never be as easy as it looks on the surface. With a sudden movement, the warrior pushes Alan off the ledge, forcing him to face the trial head-on. Alan's eyes go wide with shock as he falls through the air, completely unprepared for the warrior's sudden betrayal. He hits the water with a massive splash, sinking fast while the warrior waves a cheerful farewell from the edge. The pressure of the water closes in around Alan, and a wave of panic hits him as he finds he is unable to breathe. He reaches out blindly through the bubbles, his mind racing for a way to escape the suffocating depths of the spring. Suddenly, the environment shifts, and Alan finds himself floating in a vast, luminous underwater world filled with glowing jellyfish.